If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon, link is in the description.
Chapter 176, Chapter 176, A Miracle in a Single Draw. Looking at the 4 fragments of the 4 people sold in the ninja shop, Charles didn't have an urgent need to buy any for the moment. When he would need more pieces, he could directly buy them from the ninja shop. Or, when the option to choose himself became available, he could just focus on recruiting a powerful ninja like Kakashi Hatake, Uchiha Itachi, or Jiraiya. Using the power of pay to win, he could spend half a month or a month to get them directly. But for now, it was still not a consideration. After exiting the ninja shop, Charles looked at the remaining 24 energy blocks on the table and remembered that he still has 30 energy blocks stored in his storage space. Thinking about these energy blocks, Charles didn't hesitate and immediately took them all out for recharging. Ding! Detected energy, would you like to recharge? Recharge. Ding! Recharge successful, received 9,720 gold coins. Seeing that 54 energy blocks yielded 9,720 gold coins, Charles at that moment truly appreciated the power of double rewards. He was very satisfied with the result. Looking at the gold coin bar, it now displayed 23,984 gold coins. Seeing this number, a smile appeared on Charles's face. Now, whether it was to unlock the battle slots or to recruit Tsunade to join the team, he was filled with confidence. However, the second recharge did not raise his VIP level, which didn't surprise Charles. Based on the several VIP level upgrades he had experienced, Charles inferred that the requirements for VIP levels were 20 times higher than what he had encountered in his previous life of playing mobile games. This meant that reaching VIP level 5 would require a recharge of 20,000 gold coins, while reaching VIP level 6 would require a recharge of 40,000 gold coins. With this upgrade not reaching VIP 6, Charles wasn't surprised. Without hesitation, Charles exited the system and prepared to wash up before initiating the recruitment for Tsunade. Leaving the reception room and looking at Shizuan at the front desk, Charles ordered, "Destroy all the briefcases in the meeting room." "Yes, Lord Charles." After instructing Shizuan, Charles walked past the rest area and saw the laptop on standby mode due to not being used for a long time. He walked over and closed the laptop before taking it in his hands and heading to his bedroom upstairs. As for the Supreme Merlin's dragon ring, it was unfortunately missed by Charles. He would only be able to see it again when he opened the computer next time. Returning to the room, Charles threw the laptop on the bedside table and then went to the bathroom to take a good bath. After the bath and changing clothes, Charles sat in the center of the bed and consciously entered the system space, looking at the 2 ninja recruitment scrolls he had just obtained with great excitement. With a single wave, Charles purchased 8 and directly deducted 1,344 gold coins. With this, Charles Doyle once again had 10 ninja recruitment scrolls, while his gold coins decreased to 22,640. Looking at his 20,000 plus gold coins, Charles thought to himself that while the luck might not change, spending more certainly could save the day. With so much money today, he wasn't going to pray to anyone else. Without any further thought, Charles lay down directly on the bed and consciously entered the system space. Ninja recruitment, 10 consecutive draws, go. The whirlpool symbol of the land of whirlpools appeared before his eyes, emitting a peculiar light. After a dazzling light, the recruitment results appeared before Charles Doyle. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Gaara, 2 fragments. Ding! Obtained C rank ninja, Irika, 1 fragment. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Tenten, 1 fragment. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Sun and Tsunade, 4 fragments. Ding! Obtained C rank ninja, Hyuga Niji, 2 fragments. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Young Kakashi Hatake, 4 fragments. Ding! Obtained C rank ninja, Rock Lee, 2 fragments. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Hinata Hyuga, 2 fragments. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Hinata Hyuga, 2 fragments. Ding! Obtained A rank ninja, Kuratsuka from Boruto, 4 fragments. Recruitment completed. Charles glanced at his summoning interface and quickly found the result of Tsunade's recruitment from the 10 draws, acquiring 4 fragments. It wasn't a terrible result, at least not bottom tier with just 1 fragment. Charles could accept such results. Thinking that Tsunade's fragments were now at 36, Charles realized that another draw would probably be enough, unless he was extremely unlucky. Confirming Tsunade's recruitment result, Charles looked at the results of the other recruits. Gaara, Kakashi, Hinata, and Kurotsuki were all good, decent results from the draw. After reviewing all the information, Charles knew that this recruitment did not reach the required number of fragments for any of the ninjas. With a total of 24 ninja fragments from the 10 consecutive draws, including 4 A rank, 15 B rank, and 5 C rank fragments, he was only 2 fragments short of young Kakashi's 40 fragments and had already obtained over half of Tsuchikage Kurotsuki's 21 fragments. Taking all the ninja fragments, Charles looked at his gold coins. Seeing the 20,000 plus count, he then looked at the single recruitment option in the recruitment interface. Thinking that he had never done a single draw, and considering that the first draw's luck was usually good, Charles decided to go all out today and try his luck with a single draw, using his 20,000 plus gold coins as a safety net. With this in mind, Charles spent 168 gold coins directly to purchase a ninja recruitment scroll and then used a single draw. Ding! Obtained A rank ninja, Darui, 4 fragments. Seeing that his luck was still good, Charles decided to make the most of it and purchased another ninja recruitment scroll, trying his luck with another single draw. Ding! Obtained B rank ninja, Sunin Tsunade, 5 fragments. Wow, this was a big draw. Seeing this result, a smile appeared on Charles's face. It seemed like miracles could happen with single draws. Now, not only did he collect the 40 fragments for Tsunade, but he also had one extra. Seeing this result, Charles didn't linger on the ninja recruitment interface and directly exited. He then opened his ninja roster and, skipping over a few of the other ninjas he already had, focused on Tsunade's icon. Although Tsunade's icon wasn't illuminated, a star appeared on it. Clicking on Tsunade's icon, Charles saw 41/40 written on the fragment column, asking if he wanted to recruit the ninja. Without any hesitation, Charles clicked recruit. Ding! Congratulations, Charles Doyle, for successfully recruiting the B rank ninja, Konoha Sunin Tsunade. Chapter 177, Tsunade finally appears after much anticipation, bonus chapter. Ding! Congratulations, Charles Doyle, for successfully recruiting the B rank ninja Konoha Sunin Tsunade. At this moment, a new image popped up in front of Charles, showing Tsunade wearing battle armor, with twin tails tied up and a forehead protector. Seeing her ready for battle with a determined expression, Charles was incredibly excited. Finally, after much anticipation, after 72 ninja recruitments, he had finally recruited Tsunade, the 24-year-old girl who was at her ideal age. Opening the ninja details, Charles first focused on the ninja's skills. Konoha Sunin Tsunade, B rank ninja. Skills: Super Strength, Fierce Kick, Forward Strike, Slug Tongue Sticky Acid. T/N, there is a high chance that I am messing up the translation of the names of these skills. Hope you guys don't mind. Super Strength, quickly gathers chakra in the hands and rapidly ignites it to strike the ground forcefully. Then, uses a heavy fist to smash and attack the enemy with the flying rocks. Fierce Kick, uses a hook to knock the enemy into the air, then leaps and gathers chakra in the feet, delivering a full force flying kick. Forward Strike, uses a hook to knock the enemy into the air, then gathers chakra in the fingers to power up and fling the enemy away. Slug Tongue Sticky Acid, uses summoning jutsu to summon a giant slug. The slug spits out corrosive liquid to attack the enemy. Tsunade then jumps into the air and performs a punch attack with extremely fast descent speed, inflicting massive damage on the enemy. Seeing Tsunade's skills, Charles was very satisfied. It could be said that Tsunade's skills were very powerful in terms of attack, with 5 inherent skills. Although these skills all involved the application of super strength, the results of the attacks were different. Especially with Tsunade's summoning beast, the Slug Sage, Charles hit a jackpot. Because it is not obtained through the system interface, other ninjas cannot share it. However, Charles and Tsunade can use it together, just like how Shizuo's Tauntaun can used by Charles. So even without the blessing of medical ninjutsu, the slugs could serve as auxiliary healer. And there would be no need to worry once the Palm Sage Jutsu was activated. In addition to the increase in ninjutsu skills, what Charles cared most about aside from Tsunade herself was her strength. At this time, Tsunade was known as one of the Konoha Sunin, possessing the strength of a cage-level ninja. Even if he ordered all his other ninjas to besiege her, they would not be her match. Even Rock Lee, who opened 8 gates, wouldn't last more than a few rounds. Especially having just participated in the Great Ninja War, Tsunade's combat experience was also extremely rich. She was the first cage-level combat power under Charles, even though her rarity was only rated as B rank. However, her terrifying strength was not to be underestimated. With the acquisition of Tsunade, a massive amount of chakra converged in Charles Doyle's body, increasing his chakra once again. The amount of chakra gained by a B-rank ninja was 5 times that of a C-rank ninja, equivalent to the usage of the Chidori 15 times. With this, Charles was getting closer to his goal of becoming the strongest. At the same time, memories of Tsunade's ninjutsu skills were also transmitted to Charles. In his mind, the methods of using super strength and how to call upon the slug were all transmitted. Feeling the increased power within himself, Charles nodded in satisfaction. If super strength is added, I wonder what kind of scene it would be while using the 8th gates. Perhaps even the ironmonger would be easily pierced by a single punch now. Without hesitation, Charles immediately entered the training ground to experience the charm of super strength. Every move and gesture exuded terrifying power, and a single kick created a huge crater. With a single punch, a house was easily smashed into pieces by the forceful gust. And with Charles controlling the output of chakra, the destructive power clearly changed. Driven by curiosity, Charles wanted to try the stacking of ninjutsu, specifically whether super strength could be used while employing the 8 gates. 8 gates, gate of limits, open. Rampant chakra surged out directly, creating a hurricane on the training ground. The increase in the amount of chakra enhanced the power of Charles's gate of limits. The rampant chakra transformed into substantial flames, while veins bulged on Charles's forehead and his face contorted. Yet, Charles felt a much more intense pain than when he had opened the gate of limits before. Maintaining the state of the gate of limits, Charles prepared to use super strength. Spurt! A mouthful of blood gushed out directly, prompting Charles to quickly deactivate the 8 gates. It turned out that although both super strength and the 8 gates were physical techniques, they were in 2 different directions. The 8 gates brought rampant chakra, while super strength required precise control of the chakra. Moreover, Charles was trying to merge it within the system space and experiencing it with a body created by his will. If he did this outside, he would undoubtedly suffer severe injuries. Evidently, at this moment, Charles did not possess the ability to finally control the rampant chakra. Not to mention him, even Might Guy, who had opened the gate of death, did not have this ability. After confirming that his idea of combining the 8 gates and super strength could not be realized for the time being, Charles familiarized himself with the new ninjutsu skills and then exited the training ground. At this point, Charles was ready to see what changes would occur in the summoning interface after successfully recruiting Tsunade. Opening the ninja recruitment interface again, the next second everything in front of him changed. A huge moon appeared in Charles's eyes, followed by crows flying across the sky. The screen went black, and in the next moment, in a sea of blood, Uchiha Itachi stood in the center wearing a black and crimson cloud robe, suddenly opening his Mangekyo Sharingan at Charles. This scene almost frightened Charles, almost. The world shattered, and the scene representing the Uchiha clan shattered. Under the blood moon, the figure of 1 against 7 stood on a power line. Finally, it turned into countless crow feathers, and Uchiha Itachi appeared in a secret building of the Uchiha clan, sitting on a stone chair, with a completely black crow standing on the armrest. The final scene froze, becoming the background of the summoning interface, marked with a rank, Uchiha Itachi. The graceful figure of Tsunade in the image had disappeared, replaced by Uchiha Itachi, the member of Akatsuki. Looking at Uchiha Itachi wearing a red cloud robe and a forehead protector of a rogue ninja from Konoha, Charles's heart trembled with excitement. Finally, the limited ninja section had an A-rank ninja. And not just any A-rank ninja, but a very powerful one, Uchiha Itachi, who had already activated his Mangekyo Sharingan and joined the Akatsuki organization. Chapter 178, The Fiery Tsunade. Thinking about this limited edition ninja being Itachi, Charles was overjoyed, considering the soon-to-be recruitment of both Itachi and Haiden. 2 clear members of the Akatsuki had been confirmed, leaving only Orochimaru, Sasori, Deidara, Kisame, Kakuzu, Konan, and Pain left. Considering the 1-year recruitment time on limited edition ninjas, Charles was confident that there was enough time to recruit Itachi, even though obtaining A-rank ninja fragments was more difficult than B-rank ones. Charles was also confident in selling some information to S.H.I.E.L.D. if needed, which would enable him to possess Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan very soon. Looking at the Uchiha Itachi in the recruitment interface, Charles did not immediately perform the ninja recruitment. After all, he wanted to take things step by step. Instead of focusing on Itaki, who couldn't be brought to the real world at the moment, he should be more concerned about Tsunade, who was about to make her appearance. Taking a deep breath, Charles took another look at Uchiha Itaka sitting on the stone chair and decisively exited the recruitment interface. Upon entering the battle interface, Charles clicked on the plus sign beside the fighting column, which asked if he wanted to spend 5,000 coins to open an additional fighting slot. Without hesitation, he chose yes. The next moment, an additional slot appeared in the fighting column, and Charles's coins decreased from 22,304 to 17,304. Looking at the decreased coins, Charles tried to open another slot. The prompt asked if he wanted to spend 8,000 coins to open another fighting slot. Seeing that the requirement had increased to 8,000 instead of doubling, Charles was satisfied. This result was within his acceptable range. He clicked no. Charles didn't continue opening fighting slots, as the current 7 slots were sufficient for him. He would consider opening more after obtaining new ninjas. Looking at the as yet unsummoned Temari of the Sand and Tsunade, Charles decided to summon them separately. Having 2 female ninjas appear in the room simultaneously might not be appropriate. Without further thought, Charles dragged Tsunade's ninja card into the fighting slot. The prompt asked if he wanted to summon Tsunade within 3 meters of himself. Yes. As Charles confirmed, Tsunade's figure began to materialize slowly by Charles's bed. When her figure fully materialized, Tsunade, who had her eyes closed, suddenly opened them. Just a while ago, Tsunade had finished her fight against Hanzo with Orochimaru and Jiraiya. At that time, Jiraiya had decided to stay in the Hidden Rain village to take care of 3 war orphans who had come to them. Tsunade was disappointed with Jiraiya's decision, but she understood that it was her good friend's choice. However, the next moment, Tsunade's mind gained a new memory and appeared here. Seeing herself appearing in a room, Tsunade's anger surged upon seeing a man sitting on the bed in his pajamas, looking at her. Seeing this scene, Tsunade instantly became furious. Despite the fact that Tsunade couldn't harm the person in front of her, she couldn't let the lesson go unlearned. Don't play these little tricks anymore. I'll beat you up for real, she warned with a menacing look. Observing Tsunade's stern expression, Charles immediately realized that something was amiss with the environment in which she had summoned her. In an instant, he thought of the near-death experience that Jiraiya faced. Misunderstanding, misunderstanding. Charles hurriedly shouted. Fierce kick. Tsunade ignored Charles's explanation and delivered a high kick. Boom. With Tsunade's foot landing, not only was Charles's bed shattered, but the cement floor beneath also exploded, creating a large crater on the second floor. In that split second, Charles quickly moved to the side of the room. Clattering. The shattered bed fell through the hole and crashed down to the floor below. Upon hearing the commotion from above, Shizuan was startled and rushed towards Charles's room. Tsunade, it's a misunderstanding. Charles waved his hand, trying to explain. However, Charles, dressed in sleepwear, did not seem like he was trying to clear up a misunderstanding but rather looked like a suspicious man. Just as Charles was preparing to unleash his power to resist Tsunade's beating, she refrained from attacking. Tsunade knew it was a misunderstanding, but she just wanted to vent a little. Otherwise, her kick wouldn't have landed on the bed and the floor but on Charles's body. Humph, since it's a misunderstanding, I can forgive you. You owe me a drink. At this moment, Tsunade was in a bad mood and was ready to have a drink in this relatively safe environment. As Tsunade finished speaking, before Charles could respond, the door of the room was violently thrown open. Lord Charles, are you all right? Shizuan, who had arrived, kicked the door open and anxiously asked. Hearing the noise at the door, Tsunade curiously turned her head and saw a female ninja who was initially nervous but suddenly showed a pleasantly surprised expression. Shizuan, upon seeing Tsunade, went from a nervous expression to one of joy. Lady Tsunade. The next moment, Shizuan was about to throw herself into Tsunade's arms and express her longing for her in this short period. However, in her attempt, Shizuan didn't manage to hug Tsunade. Instead, Tsunade grabbed her by the head. What are you up to? Seeing Tsunade's angry voice, Shizuan was at a loss and quickly explained, Lady Tsunade, it's me, Shizuan. Shizuan. Tsunade was somewhat surprised. I don't know you. She responded. Seeing Tsunade not recognizing her, Shizuan stood in place, looking to Charles for help, hoping to find an answer from him. Observing everything that had just happened, Charles spoke up, "You wanted to have a drink, right? Come on, I'll treat you." As he spoke, Charles walked out of the room first and instructed, "Shizuan, remember to inform the renovation company to repair my room." Seeing Charles leave the room, Tsunade glanced at the nervous female ninja in front of her, and then followed Charles out. Bringing Tsunade to the dining area, Charles sat down in a circular sofa area and snapped his fingers, calling over a waiter. "Bring me my cherished Macallan Lalique Series 55-year-old single malt whiskey, and also bring a bottle of sake and a bottle of red wine. Also, get some salmon, sushi, sashimi, tempura, foie gras, mussels, and baby dragon." Charles directly ordered several dishes that the other party might enjoy. As for the beverages, he wasn't sure if Tsunade could handle Scotch whiskey and red wine, so he asked the waiter to bring both. Chapter 179, Chatting with Tsunade. Tsunade observed her surroundings while listening to Charles's instructing others. Tsunade laughed heartily. "The conditions here seems pretty good. Is this place yours?" With a smile on his face, Charles replied, "This is Charles's agency, my territory. You'll gradually get to know everything here." At this point, Shizuan returned to the service counter. She wanted to come over, but restrained her desire, as Charles had not invited her. As for Tsunade's situation, in the short few minutes, Shizuan had already figured it out. Based on Tsunade's appearance and attire, Shizuan speculated that the Tsunade summoned here might be the Tsunade from before she knew her. So, it was understandable that Tsunade didn't recognize her. However, this didn't make Shizuan too disheartened, as Tsunade had already come here, and there was plenty of time and opportunity to get reacquainted. A waiter arrived with beverages, glasses, and an ice bucket. The first thing brought over was Charles's cherished Macallan Lalique Series 55-year-old single malt whiskey, a bottle of fine Scotch whiskey gifted to him by Winston. The waiter also brought ice, cola, kumquats, and lemons. Charles poured some drinks for Tsunade and himself. He placed a glass in front of Tsunade and said, "This is whiskey, a fine local spirit, and the bottle in my hand is a rare vintage. First, try it to savor the taste." Tsunade looked at the array of drinks on the table, unlike the sake she had drunk in the ninja world. She picked up the glass, sniffed it, confirmed there was no issue, and then took a sip. As the whiskey flowed into her mouth, the golden liquid, with its flavors of vanilla, dried fruits, and caramel, swirled around her palate. Tsunade raised her eyebrows and put down the glass. "The taste is quite unique, completely different from the alcohol I've had before." Charles smiled but didn't say anything. He poured another half glass for Tsunade, this time adding ice cubes. "Try it with ice this time, and you'll notice a different taste." Seeing the handsome man in front of her who had brought her to this world, Tsunade wasn't overly concerned. Having just concluded a major battle, she needed a good meal and a drink to soothe her emotions. Taking up the glass, Tsunade drank it down again, finding that the whiskey was even more refreshing with the addition of ice. Seeing Tsunade down 2 small glasses in a row, Charles didn't continue pouring. He took a sip of his own drink. The waiter arrived with a variety of dishes, placing them all on the table. With the delicious food laid out, Charles gestured, "Come, let's eat and chat." After 2 glasses of whiskey, Tsunade showed no signs of being intoxicated, eagerly eyeing the delectable spread on the table. It was worth noting that she had been on the front lines in a Megakure village, where she could barely get a warm meal, let alone such sumptuous food. Tsunade unbuttoned and untied a few parts of her outfit, effortlessly removing her combat uniform and placing it aside. Underneath, she wore a cotton summer dress. Having removed her combat uniform, Tsunade's imposing assets appeared even more magnificent and substantial, leaving Charles somewhat entranced. "What the hell are you staring at? Let's drink, let's drink." Charles felt a little awkward, rubbed his nose, picked up the whiskey on the table, and poured Tsunade another half glass. With her combat uniform off, Tsunade picked up her chopsticks and began devouring the food on the table at an astonishing speed, showing no sign of treating Charles as an outsider. Observing Tsunade, Charles took a sip of whiskey and then asked, "Judging from your attire, were you on the battlefield in a Megakure earlier?" Hearing Charles's question, Tsunade swallowed the sushi in her mouth and replied, "Yes, we just ended the war in a Megakure and hadn't begun the evacuation when you brought me here. I wonder if they'll worry about me once I'm gone," she added, picking up her glass again and downing the drink. Hearing Tsunade's words, Charles thought for a moment and then said, "In your world, your absence has not changed anything. What has happened and what has not happened will not change. I have just brought you from that particular point in time. This will not alter the original course of history." Hearing Charles's words, Tsunade was momentarily stunned but didn't immediately ask. At the moment, she wasn't in the mood to contemplate too much. Tsunade took the whiskey and said, "Stop dawdling and pour some drinks." She poured herself a glass and added some more whiskey to Charles's glass. Pointing to the iced cola on the table, she asked, "Is this cola meant to be drunk directly, or is it meant to be mixed with the alcohol?" Looking at the cola in Tsunade's hand, Charles replied, "You can add a little to the whiskey, it'll provide a different taste." Popping open the can, Tsunade poured some into the whiskey and then raised her glass, savoring the taste. "The taste is good. Let's cheers." Seeing Tsunade raising her glass, Charles also raised his glass, clinking it with Tsunade's. With fine wine and delicacies for company, Charles and Tsunade continued to eat, drink, and talk, though it was mostly Tsunade speaking and Charles listening. Occasionally, Tsunade would ask about the happenings here, and Charles would respond. Meanwhile, elsewhere, as the evening darkened, the journalists had all left. Tony also left the press conference venue and returned to his residence. J.A.R.V.I.S. "Welcome home, sir." At this moment, Tony looked slightly stunned at the dark figure sitting on the sofa in the living room. "How did this guy get in? You are Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero. Mr. Stark, you have become a part of the great world, you just don't know it yet." Tony frowned and said, "I don't think I'm the only superhero. This world isn't simple." Approaching the figure, Tony asked, "So, who are you?" Nick Fury stepped out of the shadows, revealing his face, and earnestly said, "Nick Fury, the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Before Fury could finish, Tony interrupted, "I don't care who you are or what your purpose is. Get out of my home immediately." "JARVIS, how did he get in?" "Sir, I'm not sure why, but his identity has been verified." Nick Fury explained, "AI systems are easily deceivable, you know." "Tony, let me arrange your activities for tonight and help you understand the truth of the world." Chapter 180, Chapter 180, Nick Fury gets blacklisted. Tony had no interest in Nick Fury's invitation. "Get out before I get angry." Seeing Tony's direct refusal, Nick Fury continued, "Tony, don't you get out, now. JARVIS, connect me to the phone of the federal senator. I want to know when a head of a special agency has the right to intrude into my home and talk nonsense." "Sir, please wait." Witnessing Tony Stark's reaction, Nick Fury realized that it was impossible to communicate under these circumstances. He reluctantly said, Okay, I'm leaving. But I believe we will meet again." With that, Nick Fury left Tony's mansion. "Sir, the call has been connected." After the call, Tony wasted no time and directly complained to the federal senator about S.H.I.E.L.D's intrusion into his residence. He demanded a complaint be filed against S.H.I.E.L.D and requested suggestions for dealing with the matter. Evidently, Nick Fury's act of sneaking into the room had angered Tony Stark. After hanging up, Tony instructed, "JARVIS, blacklist this guy. My mansion will never receive him again." "Understood, sir." Having driven away Nick Fury, Tony decided to upgrade the defense system of the room. He couldn't allow just any agent to sneak into his room and uncover the secrets of his Mark series armor. He couldn't afford to become someone who worked for others. What he invented was his own, and he wouldn't let others take it away. After the incident with Obadiah, Tony had heightened his vigilance. Meanwhile, at Charles's agency, the conversation had given Charles a more direct understanding of Tsunade, not just the Tsunade in memory, but a more vivid and real presence. Likewise, Tsunade also gained a slight understanding of this world, Charles, and their current situation. During their conversation, they tasted various wines, not just finishing a bottle of whiskey but also trying red wine, sake, and even oriental liquor. Under the allure of multiple alcohols and Tsunade's trust in Charles, they both got drunk without using chakra to sober up. As a result, they ended up falling asleep on the table. As the two of them were completely intoxicated, the waiter informed Shizuan, who was guarding the front desk. With her arrangement, they were carried to separate rooms for rest. When Charles woke up from a nap, he groggily opened his eyes and looked around, realizing he was lying on the bed. Not finding anyone else beside him, he didn't know if he was disappointed or relieved. If someone had really been there, this building would probably have been completely demolished today. Shaking off such thoughts, Charles entered the system space. Check-in. Ding. Check-in successful. Reward, Ninja Art Secret Scroll X2. Indeed, a beautiful day always starts with checking in. Glancing at the 8 Ninja Art Secret Scrolls he already had, Charles prepared to collect 10. After a simple wash-up, Charles took out a suit from the storage space and walked out. It was nearly noon, and Charles went downstairs to the front desk, where he saw Tsunade chatting with S.H.I.E.L.D. Tsunade had changed out of her combat uniform and was now dressed in clothing selected by S.H.I.E.L.D., looking no different from when she was in Konoha. Good afternoon, you two. Seeing Charles approaching to greet them, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Tsunade greeted back, with S.H.I.E.L.D. using honorifics. Good afternoon, Lord Charles. Tsunade raised her palm and said, Good afternoon. Observing the different forms of address, Charles didn't mind. Let's have lunch together. Sure. Lord Charles, I still need to be in the front desk. Seeing the two different responses, Charles smiled and said, Come with us. It's all right to leave the front desk for a while. Besides, there are no clients with scheduled appointments now, right? With that, he led the two of them to the dining area. Arriving at the dining area, Charles didn't bother the chefs but directly took out 3 bowls of delicious ramen from the storage space. Seeing Charles's action, S.H.I.E.L.D. opened her mouth to say something but ultimately remained silent. However, Charles's actions caught Tsunade's attention. How did you store the food? It's still hot. It was surprising to Tsunade that Charles had made the ramen appear on the table just by waving his hand, without using a storage scroll or any other means. Charles smiled and explained, This is one of my abilities. I can store items, and they appear the same way they were put in, without any passage of time. You don't have to worry about the items getting spoiled. Hearing about this ability, Tsunade was amazed. If we had this back in the village, the logistics pressure would have been much lighter, and the war might have ended more quickly. After the surprise, Tsunade's eyes lit up, and she asked, Can I learn this ability? Upon waking up, Tsunade had discovered that she had lost several abilities, as if they were sealed. However, she had gained a few more skills. After communicating with S.H.I.E.L.D., she understood what had happened. Therefore, Tsunade wanted to learn Charles's ability. Charles waved his hand and said, This ability cannot be bestowed upon you. Let's taste the delicious ramen quickly. You will have a different experience. Hearing that it couldn't be given to her, Tsunade didn't show any change in her expression. Instead, she lowered her head and glanced at the delicious ramen in front of her. Is this the delicious ramen from Ichiraku? S.H.I.E.L.D. explained, Lady Tsunade, it's different. You'll know once you try it. Hearing S.H.I.E.L.D.'s words, Tsunade smiled and then picked up the chopsticks to start eating. Slurp, slurp, slurp. Feeling the changes and the restored physical strength and chakra, Tsunade was surprised. This is not Ichiraku's ramen. It's magical ramen. While resting after the war and temporarily reorganizing, it's not bad to eat this. However, it's not suitable for replenishing energy during combat. After all, the enemy won't give us time to eat ramen. Not minding Tsunade's continuous references to war, Charles understood it was a normal reaction, considering she had just come down from the battlefield. S.H.I.E.L.D. quickly explained, I am currently familiarizing myself with the herbs here and their properties. After I am familiar, I will try to prepare pills that can restore chakra. Chapter 181, Chapter 181, Tsunade entering the city, bonus chapter. Upon hearing S.H.I.E.L.D.'s words, Tsunade smiled and said, I'll help you then. I believe we can quickly produce chakra restoring pills here. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately responded respectfully. Tsunade had already learned about S.H.I.E.L.D.'s presence and understood why she had behaved that way last night. Thinking about how she was now going to be the mentor of someone who was technically older than her, as well as having a niece and disciple, Tsunade was at a loss. As for this Dan Kato, she was even more clueless. Although she knew about the Kato clan in Konoha, she had no knowledge about this particular individual. S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't elaborate much on the matter either. Nodding, Tsunade continued to enjoy the delicious ramen. Soon, the ramen was completely consumed by the three of them. After finishing lunch, Charles looked at Shizuan and then at Tsunade. Considering that Irika and the others were not around and Ginny was busy with other matters, he said, Tsunade, I'll take you to the Continental Hotel to handle your identification, and also show you around this world. Great. Tsunade had no objections to Charles's arrangement. Shizuan glanced at Charles with a puzzled expression. It was usually Irika or Ginny who handled their identification. She was surprised that today, Lord Charles was personally taking Lady Tsunade for the process. However, considering that those two were currently not at the office, Shizuan didn't dwell on it further. Yet, she could sense the high regard Charles had for Tsunade. They arrived at the garage, and Charles started his car, taking Tsunade towards the Continental Hotel. Sitting in the car, Tsunade felt it and commented, "This car of yours is pretty good, and it looks cool too." Although there were cars in the ninja world, they hadn't been developed during the Second Shinobi World War. Walking or using horse-drawn carriages was the norm then, and automobiles and trains were not yet in use. Smiling at Tsunade's praise, Charles replied, "This car isn't the coolest, though. If we have time, I'll take you to see other new models, there are even cooler ones there. If you like any of them, you can buy one for yourself to enjoy. Let's see when the time comes." Tsunade didn't immediately agree but instead opened the car window and started looking at the scenery outside. Everything in New York seemed very novel to Tsunade, the peaceful living environment, the bustling residents, and the towering skyscrapers that caught the eye. Taking in the sights of this foreign world, Tsunade was somewhat dazed. After a while, she stopped looking at the outside view and sighed, "Peace, it's truly great." Hearing Tsunade's sigh, Charles remarked, "This peace won't last long here either." Furrowing her brows in confusion, Tsunade asked, "I haven't sensed any signs of war. Moreover, from what I've observed, the people in this world are very weak. I even feel that the people here are weaker than the civilians in the Fire Nation." While Charles was driving, he explained, "You're not wrong, the ordinary people here are relatively weak. But there are people here with powerful abilities, even stronger than you can imagine. Of course, there are also some who aren't that strong. Furthermore, our enemies haven't appeared yet, but you will encounter them in the future." Muttering in response to Charles's words, Tsunade said, "Enemies in the future." Then Tsunade patted Charles's shoulder and declared, "Don't worry, I will protect you. I will use my fists to crush all enemies." Feeling the strong youthful aura emanating from Tsunade, Charles's mouth twitched slightly. That pat just now had quite some force behind it. If it weren't for his decent physical condition, he might have been knocked away by that. "Don't underestimate the enemies here, they will only grow stronger in the future, and you'll see for yourself very soon," Charles warned. Feeling Tsunade's immense strength, Charles thought of someone, the Hulk. Perhaps it would be good for Tsunade and the others to experience this behemoth when the time comes. Otherwise, they might all think that the enemies in this world were just small fry, and that wouldn't be good if they let their guard down. Thinking of the time of the Hulk's emergence, Charles understood that it was not far off. The car soon arrived at the entrance of the New York Continental Hotel. After parking the car, Charles tossed the keys to the parking attendant and led Tsunade inside. Walking through the hotel's executive corridor, Tsunade looked at the decorations and remarked, "This place looks much more impressive than your agency." Charles didn't mind Tsunade's teasing and quickly led her to the hotel's front desk. "Eddie, is Winston here?" Charles inquired. Eddie replied respectfully, "Elder Charles, the manager is here. I will inform him to meet you immediately." "I'll wait for him in the lounge area," Charles instructed. After that, Charles took Tsunade to the hotel's lounge. Along the way, all the assassins or staff in the hotel saluted or greeted Charles by tipping their hats. Curious about everything, Tsunade asked, "Is this your business too? It feels somewhat like a black market bounty hunter den, although the people here seem a bit weak." Tsunade's voice wasn't quiet, and the nearby assassins heard it all. However, none of them dared to show any hostility or question him. Charles was a legendary figure in the assassin world, surpassing all those who had previously earned the title of legendary assassin. He was the object of admiration for all assassins, the only one who eventually became an elder at the high table in the guise of an assassin, and every one of Charles's adjudicators was exceptionally powerful. Each one of them was a legendary assassin. Even the retired John Wick had become one of Charles's adjudicators. After sitting down in the lounge area, Charles explained to Tsunade, "This place is also my business. And you're not wrong, most people here are assassins, like bounty hunters in general. Charles went on to explain what the Continental Hotel was and the rules and situation here. This gave Tsunade a better understanding of Charles's power. However, Tsunade still couldn't understand and asked, "So why come here to handle my identification? Are you registering me as an assassin?" Charles smiled, and before answering, they saw Winston approaching. "The person who will handle your identification is here, you'll understand soon enough," Charles said. Winston approached Charles's table and respectfully greeted, "Elder Charles, welcome." Chapter 182, Chapter 182, The Senju. "Winston, this is my newly appointed adjudicator. I've come to help her handle her identification," Charles said. Upon hearing Charles's words, Winston shifted his gaze to Tsunade, a young golden-haired girl with a ponytail who appeared to be quite young despite being 24 years old. Although Tsunade was 24, Winston perceived a youthful energy emanating from her. "Elder, please follow me to the office upstairs. I'll handle her identification there. You won't need to make these trips in the future," Winston offered. "You only need to make a phone call, and the Continental Hotel will come to your service." "It's all right. I brought her here to familiarize her with the Continental Hotel," Charles replied. Following Winston, the three of them made their way to the office upstairs, where the staff responsible for handling identification soon arrived. Tsunade registered her information and took a photo with the staff while Charles chatted with Winston. "Elder, since you provided the wax bath service, business at the New York Continental Hotel has improved significantly," Winston informed. "Now, it's not just for assassins, even some celebrities and athletes come here for their recovery. The value of the Continental Hotel's coins has soared on the black market. They're difficult to come by," Winston added. "Even several hospital directors have approached us, hoping to introduce this technology, but I turned them all away," he continued. Hearing Winston's words, Charles nodded understandingly and replied, "We should cater to our guests. The wax bath market will only get bigger and more upscale. For those celebrities, athletes, or even wealthy individuals, the cost of treatment is negligible to them. However, for those who dare to pry into the secrets of the wax bath, we won't just chop off their claws, we'll also chop off everyone behind them," Charles declared. Winston agreed with Charles's words and nodded in agreement. He then walked over to the nearby wine cabinet and retrieved a bottle of the beautifully packaged 72-year-old Macallan Rare Cask Series single malt whiskey. "Elder, this is a gift I specially prepared for you. This whiskey is a global limited edition of 600 bottles, and I'm in the process of acquiring them. They will all be delivered to your office," Winston said with a warm smile. Charles didn't refuse the gift and accepted the exquisite bottle. After examining the packaging, Charles smiled and said, "Winston, I really like your gift." At that moment, the staff member responsible for handling Tsunade's procedures asked, "Miss, how should we fill in your surname here?" Hearing the question, Charles placed the wine glass on the desk and walked over. Looking at Tsunade, who seemed a little conflicted, Charles patted her on the shoulder and told the staff, "Senju, Tsunade. Fill in Senju for the surname." Seeing Charles's gesture, Tsunade was about to object, but Charles continued, "Let the surname Senju blossom anew here. After all, this isn't Konoha. Perhaps one day your grandfather or your second grandfather might come, and I'm sure they won't blame you. After all, it's your surname and family name, isn't it?" Tsunade asked excitedly, grabbing Charles's shoulder. Upon hearing Charles's words, Tsunade became somewhat excited and grabbed Charles's shoulder, asking, "Are you saying that my grandfather and second grandfather will come too? Is it true?" Feeling Tsunade's strength, Charles turned his hand and gently removed Tsunade's arm from his shoulder, then looked at her, saying, "Yes, they will come one day." Tsunade withdrew her arm from Charles's grip but still exclaimed, "Thank you, Charles." Charles smiled but said nothing more. Soon Tsunade completed the formalities and left the Continental Hotel with the gift Winston had sent. Meanwhile, the Irika team, which had already arrived in London, was currently at the Continental Hotel. Instead of rushing in with his team, Irika first obtained detailed information on the mission target using the intelligence system at the hotel. Once they had gathered all the necessary information, Irika set out with his team. The mission was smooth and uneventful. After dark, they easily dispatched 3 targets. On their way back, they encountered heavy rain and took the subway back to the hotel. This kind of mission is too simple. I think a single person can handle these types of C-rank missions without the need for our entire team. It would be better for everyone to take on more tasks or help Lord Charles find some special items, Sasuke said with a hint of helplessness, and Naruto chimed in agreement. Iruka took off his hat and said, the main reason is that we are unfamiliar with this place. Perhaps we might encounter what Lord Charles mentioned. Hearing Iruka's words, Sasuke disdainfully pursed his lips. Having been in this world for some time, besides a few capable individuals from the hand, he hadn't seen any other special individuals. Rock Lee, on the other hand, stood quietly on the side and didn't say anything. He just wanted to return to the office soon and start training. As the four of them waited, they saw a subway train arriving, but unfortunately, it wasn't the one they were supposed to board. They waited quietly. In the subway station, people were coming and going, and there were quite a few people waiting to board the train. A burly black man approached and pushed everyone in his way. When he got close to Iruka and the others, he stopped abruptly and shouted, "Vampire!" Turning around, he pulled out 2 submachine guns from his jacket and started shooting indiscriminately. Da-da-da-da. Bullets poured out, shooting at the people in front of him, regardless of the others' safety. Numerous passengers panicked and fled in all directions. Some passengers who were about to enter the subway entrance heard the gunfire and ran out without intending to enter. However, Iruka and his team, who had just witnessed the scene, remained unfazed. They were used to such situations and didn't hide like other passengers, instead waited for the train. At that moment, Sasuke suddenly spoke up, "Iruka-sensei, did that man shout vampire just now?" Hearing Sasuke's words, Iruka was also taken aback. There were some differences between American English and British English, and he hadn't paid much attention to what the man had shouted earlier. Now, prompted by Sasuke's reminder, Iruka carefully recalled the situation and said, "It seems like he shouted vampire." Chapter 183, Chapter 183, Vampire and Werewolf. At this moment, the burly man held 2 submachine guns and shot frantically at a white man as he advanced. Suddenly, another man rushed out and began shooting at the same target with a pistol. Bang, bang, bang. This time, the man did not manage to dodge and was hit by several bullets, falling to the ground. Seeing this, Naruto shouted, "What the heck, you guys got it wrong. These are just ordinary people." However, the man on the ground suddenly developed purple markings on his body and his face showed a grimace with it appearing to be burnt. Observing this change, Iruka furrowed his brow slightly. Was it Sasuke who misheard, or were these guns some kind of newly developed product? At this moment, a woman dressed in all black, wearing a black trench coat, suddenly emerged, brandishing 2 pistols and shooting wildly at the burly man. Da 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 da. The power of the twin pistols instantly suppressed the burly man, who took the opportunity to hide behind a pillar to reload his bullets. Since Iruka and his team were standing behind the man in black, waiting for the train to arrive, now they had become targets. Countless stray bullets flew towards them. Witnessing the scene, Sasuke immediately picked up a shuriken and appeared in front of the group, slicing each bullet in half. Meanwhile, Naruto yelled, "Can't you see properly? Don't you know how to target properly? Your bullets have flown towards us." At this moment, an innocent female passerby suddenly exclaimed as stray bullets converged on her shoulder. Seeing this, Naruto rushed out, picked up the woman, and placed her behind a large pillar, saying, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." Finishing his words, Naruto took out a roll of gauze from his ninja pouch and performed first aid on her, stopping the bleeding from her wound. Observing this scene, Catherine furrowed her eyebrows slightly. Who were these people? By this time, the bullets had ceased, and Catherine had taken cover and started reloading her gun. Rock Lee shifted slightly and asked, "Iruka-sensei, do we need to help?" Seeing the changes in front of his eyes, Iruka furrowed his brow slightly and then said, "Let's observe for now." Iruka felt that something was amiss with the body's transformation that happened, especially after recalling the words Charles had instructed before their mission. If they encounter a wizard or any supernatural creature, it was crucial to report it immediately. At this moment, the 3 of them approached Naruto and observed his actions, prompting a slight smile to appear on Iruka's face. In Iruka's understanding, one should keep war away from civilians. At this time, while both sides were reloading, a man with a gun appeared again at the entrance of the subway station and shot at the burly man, forcing him to flee into the subway car. At this point, neither side paid any attention to Iruka and his team. Catherine chased a werewolf and ran onto the tracks, pursuing the creature. Meanwhile, another vampire engaged in a shootout with the burly man through the glass. Soon, both sides continued to fight, and the situation escalated. With the bullets expended, the white man also ran towards the train, chasing after the burly man. Seeing everyone about to disappear before his eyes, Irika suddenly spoke up, "Follow them." The white man and the burly man fled, eventually dashing out of the train car and tumbling onto the tracks. As they locked eyes, the burly man suddenly transformed, his bones shifting rapidly until he became a standing werewolf. Meanwhile, the white man revealed the fangs in his mouth. With a howl from both sides, they engaged in a fierce battle. On the train, Irika and the others witnessed the scene and furrowed their brows slightly. Transformation? So this is a werewolf? It doesn't seem that impressive. It doesn't look that powerful compared to the Inyazuka clan, Suzuki added. Soon, the transformed werewolf took down the vampire and then glanced at the four people on the train before fleeing without looking back. Seeing the fleeing werewolf, Naruto shouted, "Irika-sensei, aren't we going after them?" Irika shook his head. "Perhaps we have better targets." As Irika finished speaking, gunshots and the sound of a bell rang out simultaneously. Meanwhile, after leaving the Continental Hotel, Charles took Tsunade for a stroll in the mall and bought her some clothes before heading to Killer Zero's Japanese restaurant. After a satisfying meal there, Charles took Tsunade back to the agency. Once there, she handed Tsunade a bank card and entrusted her to Shizuan. Although Charles had explained many things to Tsunade, her understanding of this world was still very limited. So he left the task of acquainting Tsunade with the new world to Shizuan. Returning to his damaged room, he found that the floor had been repaired, but there was no bed yet. Glancing at the notebook on the nightstand, Charles picked it up and walked into another room. Charles was about to open his computer when the phone rang. Seeing that it was Irika calling, he answered without hesitation, "What happened, Irika?" On the other end of the phone, Irika and his team had returned to the Continental Hotel. They had also brought back a dead vampire who had been shot and killed and another vampire who was killed by the werewolf. The two bodies were currently in the morgue at the Continental Hotel. Looking at the bodies before him, Irika replied, "Lord Charles, you mentioned that if we encountered a wizard or other extraordinary power, we should report it to you immediately. After completing our mission today, we encountered an incident at the subway station, where a vampire was chasing a werewolf. I believe this incident involves the supernatural, so I felt it necessary to report it to you." Hearing Irika mention vampires and werewolves, Charles furrowed his brows slightly. He did not know what type of werewolf or vampire they were, as there were many races of werewolves and vampires in comic books. After a moment of thought, Charles ordered directly, "Since the mission is already complete, do not return for now. First, investigate the so-called werewolf and the vampire, and send me the portraits of the werewolf and the vampire you saw, so I can see if they are the ones I know." Upon hearing Charles's instructions, Irika immediately replied, "Yes, Lord Charles, we will make sure to complete the mission." Hanging up the phone, Irika looked at the three members behind him and said, "There's a new mission. Investigate the vampires and werewolves." Chapter 184, Chapter 184, Catherine, Bonus Chapter. "Suzuki, sketch the faces of all the gunmen you saw, and send them to Lord Charles," Irika instructed, and Suzuki nodded in understanding. Naruto, who had been circling the bodies, poked at them inquisitively and asked, "Irika-sensei, why did Lord Charles ask us to investigate this? They're so weak." Suzuki and Lee nodded in agreement with Naruto's assessment of the vampire's feeble strength. Irika rubbed his chin, pondered for a moment, and then said, "If Lord Charles wants an investigation, there must be a reason for it. Perhaps these vampires are the weakest in their group, and there may be much more powerful entities above them. Perhaps the gap between them is as significant as that between a ninja trainee and an elite jonin. Of course, this is just my speculation. We'll need to conduct our investigation before coming to any conclusions about the actual situation." After issuing instructions, Irika instructed the staff, "Freeze and store the bodies for now." With that, Irika and the team left the room. Meanwhile, at Charles's agency, Charles had just hung up the phone, contemplating Irika's words. Muttering to himself, he wondered, werewolves and vampires. Charles searched his memory for any stories or information about vampires and werewolves but couldn't find anything positive about them, no matter where they were from. As for the vampires in New York, they had long been eradicated by the Blade Warriors. There wouldn't be any changes unless Dracula was resurrected or the Blood God was revived. After a while of pondering, Charles couldn't think of any valuable treasures the other party might possess. He then considered whether the vampires might have blood cores and whether they could be used for recharging. Charles didn't find anything fruitful after thinking for a while and decided to wait for Irika and his team's investigation report. He entered the system store and briefly glanced at the new ninjas, but there were no fragments that Charles needed, so he refrained from making any purchases. Glancing at the time, Charles decided not to fuss around and simply freshened up before getting into bed to rest. On the other side, at a castle, Catherine returned and, looking at the gathering of people, walked wearily to the armory. Placing the pistol she had obtained on the table, she announced, "We've got big trouble." Cone, in charge of weapon research, took out the bullets from the pistol and examined the light blue liquid inside the bullets. "I must run some tests. This is definitely some kind of radioactive liquid. Ultraviolet radiation ammunition," Catherine said directly. Cone was surprised. Using sunlight as a weapon. At this point, the vampire Clevin stepped forward and questioned, "You want me to believe that a filthy animal would use specially crafted bullets to kill vampires?" The African-American vampire Cone interjected, "No, I bet these are military grade. They must have stolen some from the military." Seeing the two of them talk, Catherine shook her head and said, "I don't care where they got this stuff from. Roger is dead, and Nathaniel is still outside. We need to bring all the vampires back," she continued. Clevin refused, "We can't retreat just because of a random attack. In a few days, it will be the awakening day, and this house is in a turbulent state right now." Hearing Clevin's words, Catherine glared at him and said, "Random? They shot at us in broad daylight, and I heard a lot of howling from the werewolves in the tunnel. Furthermore, I encountered 4 foreigners from unknown origin, one of them a teenager, wielding a..." Catherine tried to recall, unable to describe the weapon accurately, and continued, "A weapon similar to a dagger that sliced through all the bullets I fired. I don't know when another force appeared in London. Didn't we agree that the knights here belong to us?" she added. "And the leader is an Asian. I have a foreboding feeling that their arrival might disrupt the peace in the coming days." Hearing Catherine's words, Clevin said, "You didn't see any werewolves at all. We've already exterminated most of that species, there can't be a large population remaining. But I am interested in the 4 people you mentioned. Can a dagger really slice through bullets at that speed?" he asked. "Even we can't do that, unless it's Elder Victor," he remarked. Catherine felt frustrated that Clevin didn't believe there could be a large population of werewolves. "I trust my instincts. You can investigate these 4 individuals, but I think the matter of the werewolves is more important." Cone chimed in, "Catherine, Clevin is right. It's been centuries, there can't be a habitat for so many werewolves since Lucien's death." "I know that, Cone. And I hope to be proven wrong after a thorough investigation." Hearing Catherine and Cone's discussion, Clevin instructed Cone, "Have your people get everything ready. I'll have Soren organize a search team." Catherine was about to leave at that time, turned around and said, "No, I'll personally lead the team." Clevin refused, "Absolutely not. Let Soren handle it. But I need you to investigate the 4 individuals you mentioned earlier. You know what time is approaching. If they're here to cause trouble, that would be the real problem. At the very least, we need to know that they're not here for us." Caught in a dilemma between the 2 conflicting tasks, Catherine said, "Clevin, have Soren investigate those 4 individuals while I lead the team to investigate the werewolves." Clevin then looked at Cone with a smile and asked, "Do you think it's possible to have hundreds of werewolves?" Cone looked at the 2 of them but didn't interject. Unable to communicate further, Catherine left, leaving behind the words, "Victor will believe me." Afterward, Catherine went to Victor's resting place, took a look around, and then returned to her room. She had to check the surveillance to find out why the werewolves had attacked them and investigate the sudden appearance of the 4 individuals and their origins. Chapter 185, Chapter 185, The Person They're All Looking For. T/N, I never watched this movie and so I am kind of confused if the names used are correct or not. But after some digging, it seems the female character introduced in the earlier chapter should be Selene, not Catherine. And the male character should be Craven instead of Clevin. If any of you watched this movie, do let me know if the names are correct or not. Sorry for the inconveniences. Opening her computer, Selene quickly accessed the surveillance footage near the subway station. Selene watched the footage of the appearance of the Irika squad in the surveillance, from wearing raincoats to entering the subway station, taking off their hats after entering, revealing their faces, and then watching the scene until the end of the battle. Selene then took screenshots of the clearest images of the 4 individuals, printed them out, and set them aside. Then she took out the storage card from the camera she had found and plugged it directly into the computer to view it. At this time, the vampire Erica walked in wearing a dress and approached the mirror, gestured, and said, "This is it." Turning around, she looked at Selene, who was using her notebook, and said, "You definitely have to wear this, it's fantastic." But Selene didn't even look back, focusing on the photos in the camera. Soon, the figures of the 2 werewolves before their transformation appeared. Selene quickly remembered a scene from the subway and murmured, "Were they chasing someone?" Upon hearing Selene's words, Erica, curious, walked over and looked at the photos on the computer, saying with a smile, "He's really charming." At this time, Craven, who came in through the door, said, "Who is getting charmed by humans?" Seeing Craven coming over, Erica didn't respond, but walked straight out and closed the door behind her. Craven walked to the window, looking at the pouring rain outside, then turned to look at Selene and said, "I plan to have you by my side tonight." Selene didn't look up, still focused on the computer, and said, "Bring Erica along, she'd love to be by your side." Listening to Selene's response, Craven said, "I think you take this fight too seriously. No matter how many people you kill, you can't change the past. And if you refuse the simple pleasures of life, what's the point of immortality?" Selene remained expressionless, putting the printed photos of the Irica squad in front of Craven and saying, "These 4 people are the ones I told you about earlier, the ones who could deflect bullets with just a knife in the subway station." Craven picked up the photos and looked at the group of 1 adult and 3 children, somewhat surprised. "Are you sure you're not mistaken? 3 of them are kids." Selene pointed to the photo of Uchiha Sasuke, then said, "It's this young boy who deflected the bullets." Hearing that it was not the Asian adult male but a child who had acted, Craven was taken aback. Just then, the sound of the castle gate being opened came from behind. "Damn it!" Craven cursed. Walking to the window, Craven watched a Maybach driving into the castle. Knowing that today's guest had arrived, he didn't linger. Put on appropriate clothes, quickly. At this time, Selene looked up and said, "Craven, besides these 4 unidentified individuals, I have also found the reason for the werewolf's appearance. They are tracking this man." As she spoke, Selene raised her notebook computer in her hand and showed it to him. Glancing at the computer, Craven said, "Why would werewolves track a human unless it's for food?" After speaking, Craven didn't linger and walked out of the room, reminding Selene to hurry up. On the other side, in a dirty and messy laboratory, a man's hands were tied, hanging in mid-air. A bespectacled man took out a syringe and directly pierced the artery on the man's neck, extracting a tube of blood. At this time, the leader of the werewolves, Lucian, walked in. "Any progress?" he asked. The researcher looked at Lucian and said, "Let me see." He then walked to the nearby lab bench and dropped the extracted blood into a reagent, stirring it. Looking at the beaker where no change had occurred, he turned to Lucian and said, "Nothing." Upon hearing that there had been no change, Lucian looked disappointed and walked to a blackboard with various names and photos hanging on it. Taking a black pen, he crossed out the name James T. Colvin. Michael, who ran back to the hospital from the subway station, unaware that he was being watched, left the hospital in frustration. On the other side, in the subway station, the lone surviving werewolf, Reyes, carried his companion's body and returned. After placing the body on the operating table, Reyes said, "We fell into an ambush. 3 vampires, but we took out 2 of them." Lucian looked at Reyes and said, "What about the target?" Reyes was covered in wounds, with 4 specially made darts hanging from his chest. "We lost the target." Lucian said expressionlessly, "You lost him." At this point, the researcher and part-time doctor among the werewolves directly tore open the clothes of the companion brought back by Reyes. Seeing the several bullet holes in his chest, he regretfully said, "What a mess." Reyes said, "Mercury bullets, high concentration, preventing his transformation." The doctor took out a pair of tweezers and removed one of the bullets, regretfully saying, "There's no point in digging out the others. Silver has already pierced his organs. Rebirth is impossible now." Looking at the darts on Reyes' body, the doctor said, "Let me help you take off these things on your body." After preparing the instruments, he faced the darts on Reyes' body and said, "Relax." Amid Ray's cries of pain, he directly tore off one of the darts and threw it into the sink. Lucian looked at the pained Rays and said solemnly, "Those vampires don't know you're tracking a human, do they, Rays?" "I don't know. I mean, I think they don't know." Lucian said expressionlessly, "You think they don't know, or you don't know?" Rays looked at Lucian and said, "I'm not sure." "Ah." The doctor pulled another dart from Ray's body. Rays breathed a sigh of relief and said, "But I saw 4 powerful assassins at the subway station. One of them could easily deflect bullets with a knife. They are incredibly strong." "Assassins?" Lucian was puzzled. "Yes, assassins. I saw them enter the Continental Hotel yesterday. I don't think vampires are a match for them. Lucian, I think we can ask for their help." Listening to Ray's words, Lucian rubbed his head and asked, "Can you find them?" Chapter 186, Chapter 186, Commission. "I remember their scent and appearance. As long as they're still in London, I can find them." At this time, the researcher took some werewolf blood from Rays and placed it into the previous beaker for blood neutralization. Seeing the red blood completely engulfed by the werewolf blood, he said helplessly, "No, I must meet this Michael." Lucian looked at Rays and directly ordered, "Go find the 4 assassins you mentioned. If they're really as powerful as you say, ask them if they're willing to take on a commission. If feasible, let them help us intercept the vampires. As for Michael, it seems I'll have to handle it personally." As for why he didn't entrust the task of bringing Michael to the others, Lucian wasn't confident in handing this over to them. After speaking, Lucian left without looking back. Watching Lucian leave, Rays grabbed the last dart on his chest and pulled it out with force. With the silver dart removed, Rays' wound began to heal rapidly. Without any hesitation, Rays walked to a room and, upon entering, punched the wall in front of him. Bang! His fist blasted into the wall, and he retrieved a box from within it. Opening the box, he found a dozen Continental Hotel coins. Stuffing the coins into his pocket, Rays put on a coat and drove towards the direction of the Continental Hotel in London. On the other side, in Craven's castle, there was a gathering of numerous vampire members. A well-dressed vampire man held up a glass filled with blood and said, "Our esteemed family may be separated by the oceans, but we are still committed to preserving our lineage. Once Amelia arrives and awakens Marcus, within the next 2 days, we will unite once again. Let us thank our host for his hospitality." Craven, sitting on one side of the banquet, watched the other party talk with enthusiasm. At this moment, Erica approached him and whispered in his ear, "Go upstairs and check. It seems Selene has left." Upon hearing Erica's words, Craven didn't hesitate and followed her upstairs. Pushing open the door, he found the room empty except for the notebook computer Selene had just been using, which was still on. Craven heard some commotion downstairs and happened to see Selene driving away through the window. Feeling a mixture of anger and helplessness, Craven had no choice. As the temporary caretaker of all this, he could only return to the banquet. After all, he was the host tonight and couldn't be absent. Though Selene hadn't found information on the Irica squad, she had found information on Michael Corvin and knew that he lived at 39 Lactose Joseph 3B510. She drove straight there. She wanted to know why the werewolves were after this guy. Meanwhile, Rays had arrived at the Continental Hotel and walked through the lobby to the front desk. The receptionist at the Continental Hotel, Rena, looked at the approaching muscular black man, with a professional smile on her face. With a suggestive smile, Rena said, "Hello, sir. How may I assist you today?" Rays took out a Continental Hotel coin from his pocket, placed it on the counter, and said, "I would like to specify a few people for a commissioned task." Looking at the coin on the table, Rena picked it up and carefully examined it, exclaiming, "Sir, the design of your coin is quite rare these days. For the specified commission, please wait a moment." Rena picked up the reception phone and pressed a dial button, speaking some words before hanging up. Within a minute, a waiter rushed over and said to Rays, "Sir, please follow me. The commission area is in another location." Rays followed the waiter through the hotel lobby, through the basement, and opened another door, entering a special place. It was the bounty hall, where many assassins were sitting, each looking at the bounty announcement screen, selecting their targets. The waiter led Rays into a room in the bounty hall and said, "A staff member will register your task shortly." After speaking, the waiter left, leaving Rays alone in the room. Rays looked at the long table in the room and sat on a chair, waiting. Soon, a man dressed like a clerk walked in, holding a stack of files in his hand, sitting opposite Reyes, and asked, "Sir, what kind of commission would you like to make?" At this moment, Reyes took out a sketch, which depicted the 4 members of the Irika squad. "I want to specify these members of the squad to complete a task for me. The price is 10 coins and $3 million. Reyes said. The registering staff member looked at the portrait that the black man had taken out, observing it for a moment. Initially, he hadn't paid much attention, but upon hearing the payment amount, he was stunned. After all, 10 coins had a considerable value. Especially with the emergence of the recovery room, the value of coins in London had soared. However, when he saw the portrait, he was even more astonished. It was well known that after Charles became the elder, he informed all the continental hotels about his adjudicators and enforcers. Many high-ranking members and staff of the Continental Hotel were familiar with the chief enforcers, including Irika. The staff member, looking surprised at Reyes, then said, "Sir, are you sure you want to find these people? Your price may not be enough to engage them." Upon hearing the staff member's polite refusal, Reyes wasn't surprised. Asking such strong individuals for a task was certainly not straightforward. "Could you please inform them and see if they're interested? I know they're staying at the hotel. Just tell them that a friend from the subway station wants to commission a task," Reyes requested. "Even if they don't accept the task, I'm willing to pay 3 coins as a visit fee." Upon hearing Reyes' words, the registering staff member thought that this guy must have some request for the adjudicators, otherwise, he wouldn't have paid 3 coins just to meet them. "I can convey your message, but I can't guarantee if they'll see you," the staff member said. "And the cost for this conveyance will be 1 coin. Reyes readily took out a coin from his pocket and placed it on the table. After receiving the coin, the registering staff member left through the back door, leaving Reyes waiting inside. Chapter 187, Chapter 187, A-Level Mission. In the room, Suzuki had just finished drawing a sketch of the battle between several werewolves and vampires in the subway station. Looking at the portraits of the individuals, Irika nodded in satisfaction and proceeded to take photos of the sketches and send them to Lord Charles through the computer. Just as Irika was about to use the hotel's intelligence system to gather information on these individuals, the room phone suddenly rang. Answering the call, he heard a voice on the other end. "Lord Irika, good day. I am the staff responsible for issuing bounty tasks at the hotel. We have a guest who wants to commission the 4 of you for a task. He claims to be a friend from the subway station and wishes to entrust a task to you." Listening to the staff member, Irika pondered for a moment. "The subway station? All right, I understand. I'll be right down." After hanging up, Irika glanced at the 3 others and said, "The target has come to us. You guys wait here in the room." "Understood," they replied. As Irika left the room, Naruto suddenly stuck his head out and suggested, "Should we secretly follow and see who has come to find us?" Suzuki glanced at Naruto, rolling his eyes and calling him an idiot. Rock Lee added, "Naruto, it's likely someone from the subway station, either a werewolf or a vampire. Let's wait for Irika-sensei to come back, we'll find out then. Moreover, the hotel's bounty commissions are conducted in small rooms. You won't be able to hide there," he added. Hearing the rejection from both, Naruto just jumped onto the bed, lying there in a sprawled position, muttering, "You guys are no fun." Meanwhile, Reyes had been waiting for a while and saw Irika enter the room. Observing the scar that ran across his face, Reyes couldn't help but wonder what kind of enemy could have caused such an injury. After all, in Reyes' mind, Irika was someone with powerful strength. Irika settled in the task room and, upon seeing Reyes, asked, "What brings you here to see me?" Reyes looked at Irika and replied, "Hello, sir. My name is Reyes. I'm sure you've witnessed the scene at the subway station. I won't hide it from you anymore. We are werewolves, and our enemies are vampires. I want to commission you and the other 3 present at the subway station to help us resist the vampire attacks. The time frame is 3 days, starting from the moment you accept the task. For this, I am willing to offer 10 gold coins and 3 million pounds. Upon hearing the mission proposal, Irika thought to himself that this was an opportune moment, as he had been looking to investigate these 2 races and now, the opportunity had presented itself. Retrieving an empty scroll from his shinobi pouch, Irika spread it out on the table and declared, "I am known as Umino Irika. We accept your mission." Irika promptly wrote the details of the mission on the scroll and handed it over to Reyes. Looking at the scroll thrown to him, Reyes was somewhat puzzled. Throughout his long life, he had worked as an assassin and accepted tasks from the Continental Hotel, but he had refrained from appearing in public due to the pursuit of the werewolf among the vampires. Taking the scroll and examining its contents, Reyes was surprised. The Continental Hotel has changed the format for publishing missions. Irika explained, it's not that the Continental Hotel has changed the format, but if you want to commission us, this is the way to do it. And you need to pay the mission fee in advance. As he spoke, Irika took out his adjudicator's coin and played with it in his hand. Seeing the object in Irika's hand, Reyes suddenly realized. He knew that there were adjudicators above the assassins, but he didn't expect to encounter one today. Without hesitation, Reyes signed his name on the mission scroll and immediately took out 10 Continental Hotel coins and a bank card, saying, "Sir, there's £3 million in the account. The password is 666666. Irika accepted the mission scroll from Reyes and submitted it to the mission hall, receiving a prompt shortly after. A-level mission, commissioned by Reyes, executed by Umino Irika, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Rock Lee. Upon receiving the successful mission submission notification, Irika received the coins and the bank card from Reyes, then quickly blocked the other's view and took out his phone to make a call. A-level mission, assemble in the hotel lobby. After hanging up, Irika said, "Let's go, Mr. Reyes. Let's head to the lobby first." With Reyes in tow, Irika walked to the hotel's lounge area where Naruto, Sasuke, and Rock Lee had already gathered. Seeing Irika's arrival, Naruto exclaimed with excitement, "Irika-sensei, an A-level mission, that's fantastic." Irika introduced, "This is our mission commissioner, Reyes. These are Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Rock Lee." Seeing the burly man introduced by Irika, Naruto exclaimed, "You're the werewolf from the subway station." Sasuke, on the other hand, glanced thoughtfully at Reyes, not saying much. He remembered that Lord Charles had instructed them to investigate the werewolves and vampires thoroughly. Rock Lee, on the other hand, greeted him warmly, "Hello, Mr. Reyes." Observing the three who seemed like mere children in stature, Reyes didn't look down on them but instead showed great respect, saying, "I will leave the task to you." The three looked to Irika, inquiring about the mission. "Reyes will take us to the place that needs to be guarded, and I'll explain the mission details to everyone on the way," Irika said. Soon, the group got into Reyes' car and headed toward the gathering place of the werewolves. On the other side, Selene had already arrived at Michael's room, finding it empty. She began rummaging through the room's belongings, glancing at the photo of Michael. Ring ring. Ring ring. Suddenly, the telephone in the room rang, and Michael, who was about to enter to the room, heard the ringing. The phone's voicemail feature automatically activated. "This is Michael. I'm not home right now. Please leave a message." After the beep, a voice came through, "Michael, it's Adam. The police are looking for you at the hospital. They think you're involved in a shooting, but I told them it's impossible. But they're looking for you, right now." Chapter 188, Chapter 188, Intelligence Collection, Bonus Chapter. As Michael walked into the room, he listened to the message on the phone and was momentarily stunned. At that moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Michael, grabbing his neck and pinning him against the wall. It was Selene, who grabbed Michael by the neck and looked at him, asking, "Why are they looking for you?" With his breathing restrained by the grip, Michael couldn't speak. At that moment, the room ceiling suddenly started to collapse on a large scale, accompanied by the howls of the werewolves. Selene turned to look at the change in the ceiling, instantly realizing that the werewolves had also found them. Without hesitation, Selene released Michael and immediately drew a specially made handgun, firing directly at the ceiling. Rat-tat-tat. While Selene is shooting, Michael broke free and ran out, crouching and rushing away. After a round of shooting, seeing Michael already running out, Selene hurried to pursue him, but unfortunately she was a step too late, watching him close the elevator and go down. "Damn it!" Selene cursed, and, at that moment, the windows in the corridor suddenly shattered, and 4 werewolves crawled in. Seeing the scene before her, Selene didn't panic in the slightest, holding the gun with both hands and firing silver bullets as if they didn't cost money to buy. Bang, bang, bang. Instantly, 3 out of the 4 werewolves were shot dead. Seeing the already descending elevator, Selene took out her specially made gun, and fired it wildly at the floor beneath her. After a round of shooting, she instantly blasted a big hole and fell downstairs herself. Meanwhile, in the elevator, Michael saw it reach the first floor and a relieved smile appeared on his face. However, as the elevator doors opened, Michael saw a man staring at him like prey. "Hey, Michael!" Hearing the other person call his name, Michael's face was filled with terror. By this time, S.H.I.E.L.D had caught up, having reloaded the bullets in her gun on the way, and she immediately pointed her gun at the man at the elevator door and started shooting. Several bullets quickly hit the man. Lucian, hit by the silver bullets, was instantly injured and staggered into the elevator. Taking advantage of the situation, he grabbed Michael's shoulder and bit him. Shortly after, S.H.I.E.L.D, who arrived, did not see this scene. Instead, she grabbed Michael's feet and pulled him out of the elevator. Seeing the prey escape, Lucian didn't immediately pursue but instead took out a test tube from his pocket and spat Michael's blood into it. Even if he didn't catch the target, as long as there was blood, he could test whether Michael was the person he was looking for. After collecting the blood, Lucian used his own power to expel all the silver bullets that had entered his body, instantly recovering from his injuries. Having done all of this, Lucian immediately went after them. By this time, S.H.I.E.L.D had already taken Michael into the car and stepped on the gas, driving away. After running out, Lucian watched the car speeding into the distance and crazily chased after it. Without transforming into a werewolf, only in his human form, Lucian's speed was even faster than that of the accelerating car. Soon, Lucian caught up with the car and leaped onto the top of it. He then extended a short sword from his right arm and thrust it towards the car roof. The first two thrusts were unsuccessful, but finally, on the third thrust, he hit S.H.I.E.L.D's shoulder, causing her to scream in pain. Sitting at the speeding Mercedes, S.H.I.E.L.D slammed the brakes, causing Lucian, on the car roof due to inertia, to be flung off and fall in front of the car. As she watched Lucian fall in front of the car, S.H.I.E.L.D quickly reversed and, after a distance, stepped on the gas pedal, rushing towards him. Lucian was hit by the car but cleverly rolled and jumped. Despite not receiving any injuries, he watched the two people drive away. He decided not to pursue them further. For him, he had achieved his goals by obtaining Michael's blood and infecting him with lycanthropy. Watching the two leave, Lucian's face showed a smile, and he then returned to the werewolf's lair. The doctor, seeing Lucian return empty-handed, exclaimed, "You had to escape as well." It seems that Reyes did not exaggerate. At that moment, Lucian smiled and took out a test tube filled with blood, saying, "But Reyes didn't bring this back." Seeing what Lucian held, a smile appeared on the doctor's face as he walked over and took the blood sample, saying to Lucian, "If Michael is indeed the person we are looking for, then the vampires will. Relax, buddy. I've tasted his flesh. There are 2 days left until the full moon. Soon, he will become a werewolf. Soon, he will come looking for us." Without waiting, the doctor picked up the blood sample and tested it, dropping the blood into a beaker and conducting a neutralization test with werewolf blood. "Such a pity we don't have more of his blood." As the doctor stirred, the blood in the beaker changed, with Michael's blood neutralizing the werewolf blood. The doctor marveled, "It is indeed him." At that moment, the werewolf den heard 5 footsteps and some unfamiliar aura. It was Reyes leading Irika and the 3 others. Seeing the arrival of outsiders, Lucian immediately walked out. Under Reyes' guidance, the Irika squad did not come into conflict with the werewolves and smoothly entered their headquarters. Seeing Lucian, the leader of the werewolves, Reyes said, "Lucian, these 4 are the powerhouses I met at the subway station." It was this young man who split the bullets with his kunai. On the way back, Reyes also learned about the weapons used by the others. Introducing the young man was intended to prevent Lucian from underestimating him due to his age. Looking at the 4 humans in front of him, Lucian glanced at Reyes and then smiled, saying, "Gentlemen, if the vampires attack next, I'll leave it to you." Irika stepped forward, his face showing no expression, and said seriously, "Since we've taken on this mission, we'll ensure its smooth completion." After a brief greeting, Lucian instructed Reyes, "Take these 4 guests to choose weapons. Vampires are primarily afraid of ultraviolet light." Following Lucian's orders, Reyes took Irika and the others to the armory. Throughout the process, Irika didn't express any objections. He also wanted to understand what special weapons the werewolves used to combat the vampires. Chapter 189, Chapter 189, Shippuden, Rock Lee. On the other side, S.H.I.E.L.D, who was seriously injured, fell into a brief coma due to excessive blood loss, with both herself and the car plunging into the river. In the end, with Michael's efforts, using the pistol to shatter the car window, pulled the unconscious Selene onto the bank, and gave her some simple wound dressing. However, he also fell unconscious due to being bitten by the werewolf. When Selene woke up and saw the wound on her shoulder, she glanced at the unconscious Michael and knew that he had saved her life. Without further hesitation, Selene directly carried Michael. She had to return to the castle before daybreak. On the other side, the gathering place of the werewolves. Reyes led Irika and the others to the armory. They saw a wall covered with all sorts of firearms, from handguns to assault rifles, all of which had been modified, with bullets equipped with ultraviolet radiation. You can choose whatever weapons you like, Reyes said, showcasing the array of firearms and boxes of bullets laying everywhere. Irika, however, interrupted, we don't need any weapons right now. First, tell us about the characteristics of the vampires and their strength. Seeing Irika asking this question, Reyes did not refuse and began to explain. The vampires are a long-lived species with a long life, which is the same as us werewolves. They fear sunlight and ultraviolet radiation. Short exposure to sunlight can cause extensive burns, but their recovery is also fast. Only with prolonged exposure to sunlight all over the body will they die directly. At the same time, they are powerful, agile, and have a very fast recovery rate. By sucking the opponent's blood, they can obtain the opponent's memories. At the same time, being bitten by them will also turn one into a vampire. Upon hearing that being bitten would turn them into vampires, the expressions of Irika and the others became slightly solemn. Although this could prolong their lives, no one wanted to become something that could not appear during the day. At this moment, Irika asked calmly, what about being bitten by a werewolf? Reyes grinned and then said, of course, being bitten by a werewolf will also transform one into a werewolf on the full moon night. But werewolves are not afraid of sunlight. Irika then took out the silver bullets found in the subway station and placed them in front of Reyes, saying, but you are afraid of silver. Seeing the silver bullets in Irika's hand, Reyes did not deny it but nodded in agreement, saying, that's right. Although werewolves are not afraid of sunlight, they are afraid of silver weapons. Irika pondered for a moment and then asked, if we don't use ultraviolet radiation bullets, can ordinary weapons kill vampires? What is the scale of the vampire community, and what is the highest level of their combat power? Upon hearing Irika's questions, Reyes pondered for a moment and then said, if you don't use specially designed weapons against vampires, you need to decapitate them to effectively kill them. After all, their recovery ability is strong, and ordinary wounds will heal on their own in a short time. As for the scale of the vampires, I am not sure, but just the people gathered at the enemy's castle alone exceed 100, not to mention the vampires spread throughout the city. But the enemy will not launch a full-scale attack. The attacking force may consist of dozens of people, or even more, but we also have a considerable number of people. As for the enemy's strength, the vampires you saw at the subway station last time are the main force of the vampires and some of the are the most powerful beings among them. Unless they are elder-level vampires, they shouldn't be your opponents. As for the strength of the elders, I haven't seen it, but I know they are very powerful. Listening to the words of the other side, Irika nodded. After asking some more questions about vampires, he ended the conversation. Mainly, Reyes didn't know much, and there were many things Irika asked that he couldn't answer. As for the information and history of the werewolves, Reyes was evasive and wouldn't tell him everything. As for the firearms provided by the other side, apart from Irika taking a pistol for research, the other three did not choose these weapons. They trusted more in their own abilities and ninjutsu. In this way, Irika's team began to learn about the entire gathering place of the werewolves under the guidance of Reyes, as well as where would be suitable for the enemy's attack and where would be suitable for defense. The next day, Charles woke up in the Charles Agency in New York City. After rubbing his eyes, he found himself in the system space. Check-in. Ding. Check-in successful, rewarded with 300 ninja pearls. Charles collected the ninja pearls and opened the ninja store to browse. Uchiha Attack fragments, 520 gold coins. Kisame fragments, 300 gold coins. Haku fragments, 180 gold coins. Shippuden Rock Lee fragments, 80 gold coins. Seeing the four ninjas listed in the store, Charles was taken aback, especially at the price of 520 gold coins for Ataki, which made him hesitate. It was too expensive. If 10 consecutive draws could yield more fragments, buying Ataki's fragments would be a loss. After some thought, Charles decided not to purchase Attackus fragments. He was, however, quite interested in the appearance of Rock Lee, who had already become a Chunin. At 80 gold coins per fragment, it was truly cheap. Without hesitation, Charles made a full purchase, spending 320 gold coins to acquire 4 fragments. He then glanced at the fragments of the B-rank ninja Haku and the A-rank ninja Kisame. After some consideration, Charles decided to buy the Kisame fragments as well. He spent another 1,200 gold coins and obtained 4 Kisame fragments. Charles then left the system store and opened the mission hall. He noticed that the mission given by Hydra had already been completed, so he immediately chose to claim the rewards. Ding! Mission completed, rewarded with 500 reputation points, 50,000 copper coins, and 1 normal treasure chest. Charles also saw an additional A-level mission in the mission hall submitted by Team Irika. It seems they have made significant gains over there. Knowing that A-level missions were hard to come by, it seemed they had encountered someone with formidable strength. Without lingering too long in the mission hall, Charles exited the system space. After getting up and freshening up, Charles had some food downstairs before returning to his room and opening the computer to review the files sent by Irika. Looking at the 6 photos sent, Charles downloaded them one by one. First were 2 photos of vampire corpses. After taking a look, Charles realized that they did not match the memories of the vampires he had, so he continued to flip through. Chapter 190, Chapter 190, Coulson's Suspicions. Charles went through several sketches of men and women, feeling a sense of familiarity. As he flipped through the photos one by one, he recognized the characters. It turned out to be the lore of the Underworld series. So, it's the Underworld series. Looking at the sketch of Selene, Charles began to recall the plot of this movie series. It seemed that due to the bloodline of Alexander Corvinus, a war between vampires and werewolves had been ongoing for years. The 2 parties he created seemed to have nothing except a long lifespan and some special abilities. Especially his son, who turned into a werewolf, completely lost his mind and turned into a crazy wild wolf. It seemed that this vampire clan didn't have blood cores, and most likely, they couldn't be used for recharging. This disappointed Charles to some extent. After careful consideration, Charles realized one advantage the other side had, the ability to gain information through blood-sucking. It was a useful skill for interrogation. Before obtaining a skilled interrogator, having a subordinate who could gather information through blood-sucking was not a bad choice. Thinking about this, Charles picked up his phone and dialed Irika without hesitation. In a short while, the call was answered. Lord Charles, do you have any orders? Irika, is it convenient to talk there? Irika glanced around and, ensuring there were no werewolves nearby, whispered, No problem, Lord Charles. Please go ahead. I've seen the images you sent. I know the general information about this vampire werewolf clan. You need to do 2 things for me. First, hunt down a few vampires and check if they have blood cores, a red crystal that might be located near the heart or elsewhere. Try different ranks. If the normal vampires don't have it, try their elders. I remember there are 2 elders in London, one named Victor and the other Marcus. If they have this substance, collect as much as possible. It might come in handy. Second, find 1 or 2 suitable vampire members and bring them back. I am very interested in their ability to gain memories through blood-sucking. They might be suitable for the interrogation team. Hearing Charles's instructions, Irika pondered for a moment before saying, Lord Charles, what about the werewolves? Should we bring back 1 or 2 as well? Charles rubbed his chin, thinking about the werewolves' abilities, which weren't outstanding, and didn't have any remarkable special abilities. He then said, We don't need them. Understood, Lord Charles. After ending the call, as Charles was about to put down his phone, it rang again. The caller was a member of the Hydra. Mr. Charles, we have received the information. The mission has been completed, and we are very satisfied with the results. Listening to the other party's courteous words on the other end of the phone, Charles calmly replied, Since the mission is completed, the commission is over. If there is another task, remember to bring energy blocks. After finishing the call, Charles hung up directly. The Hydra personnel, hearing the busy tone on the other end of the phone, looked somewhat helpless as he glanced at Pierce and said, he hung up, saying to bring energy blocks if there's a commission. Pierce looked at him, chuckled, and said, his personality is interesting. Let it be this way for now. When there's a suitable task, go to his office to submit the commission. As for gathering intelligence, let's see how Nick Fury handles it. The two exchanged a glance, and everything was understood without further words. On the other side, in Nick Fury's office, Coulson, holding a file in his hand, reported, "Director, things don't look optimistic. I've reviewed all the information in the Bureau, and using AI for keyword searches, but I didn't find anything related to what Charles mentioned, the Uchiha and Senju clans. Even in Japan's population database, there's no record of these two surnames. I don't know if it's because the information is too old and not recorded or because his intelligence is not accurate." At this moment, Nick Fury took out a document and threw it in front of Coulson. Taking the document handed over by the director, Coulson immediately looked through it. This document was none other than the personal information processed by the Continental Hotel for Tsunade. Ever since learning that the ninjas around Charles all processed their personal information and accounts through the Continental Hotel in New York, Nick Fury had been monitoring that place. Any identity information processed by the Continental Hotel would be promptly copied to S.H.I.E.L.D. Looking at the name on top of the file, Tsunade Senju, and the bright blonde hair in the photo, Coulson pondered for a moment before speaking, "Director, I just inquired about who established the Hidden Leaf Village. It was two clans, the Uchiha and the Senju. Not even 2 days have passed, and now a member of the Senju clan suddenly appears." Seeing Coulson's hesitant words, Nick Fury asked, "Do you think this is too coincidental, or do you believe that Charles Doyle is deceiving us?" Considering Nick Fury's question, Coulson thought for a moment before saying, "It's not impossible, but it's not certain either. After all, one Uchiha clan member have already appeared around Charles, so it's normal for a Senju clan member to appear now. But I think we should test it or carry out a mission to confirm the strength of this Senju clan member. Since she's already an adult and from the Senju clan, her strength must be greater than that of Rock Lee or Charles." Hearing his subordinate's suggestion, Nick Fury pondered for a moment and then said, "If she's really a member of the Senju clan, do you think any of our people are qualified to test her strength?" In response to the director's question, Coulson recalled the agents in the Bureau but realized that none of them were capable of probing her strength. Could they use a missile to test her? Small missiles had already been proven ineffective against ninjas. As for large ground-to-ground or ground-to-air missiles, they can't be used in New York, and if they were exposed, the other party would certainly not take it lightly. "Director, I don't know how your negotiation with Tony Stark went." Coulson suggested to let Iron Man test her strength. Nick Fury understood Coulson's thoughts, but unfortunately, Tony Stark ignored him. Thinking about the rejection he had just experienced, Nick Fury's face became even darker. Chapter 191, Chapter 191, Chakra Detector, Bonus Chapter. Tony Stark is not cooperating, it may take some time to persuade him. As for the authenticity of this Tsunade, we don't need to rush to test it. Let's wait for the opportunity to come slowly. If it's real, it's hard to tell. If it's fake, it's also hard to confirm. Continue to find ways to dig up more information in the location of the Hidden Leaf Village. As long as they are on Earth, I don't believe we can't find them." Coulson nodded, "Understood, Director. Also, inform the scientific team to find a way to develop a device for detecting chakra. As long as we have that, I don't believe they can hide." "Director, this may take some time. Chakra is a new energy and has not been recorded by us. It's only possible to develop a detection device after the next outbreak or capturing the opponent's chakra for research." Listening to Coulson's words, Nick Fury nodded and said, "Make them speed up the progress. The sooner it's ready, the more helpful it will be for us." "Understood, Director." Then Coulson got up and left. London. Time quickly moved to night again. Michael, who had been unconscious for a day, seemed to see many different scenes in his dreams and finally woke up in shock. Opening his eyes and looking at the unfamiliar environment, he was about to get up, but was pressed down by the Selene standing beside him. "Lie down. You've been unconscious for a day, and your head took quite a hit." Looking at Michael, still gasping for breath, Selene asked, "Do you know why those people were tracking you?" Michael took a deep breath and didn't answer Selene's question. Instead, after looking around the surroundings, he asked, "Where am I?" "You're safe. I'm Selene." Seeing that the other party didn't answer his question, Michael continued to gasp for breath and then closed his eyes. At this time, the door was pushed open, saying to Selene, "Looks like the rumors are true." Erica walked in, looked at Michael lying on the sofa, and then said excitedly, "Everyone in the whole house must be gossiping about your new favorite. Are you planning to turn him into a vampire?" Selene immediately replied, "Of course not." Erica curiously asked, "Then why did you bring him here?" Selene looked at the man in front of her and calmly replied, "He saved my life." Then she turned to Erica and asked, "Why are you here?" "Craven sent me. He wants to see you, now." Upon hearing this, Selene didn't linger and went straight to Craven's room. As soon as Craven saw Selene, he reprimanded, "This is absolutely unacceptable. You disobeyed my orders, left for the whole night, stayed with a human, and brought him back to my house." Hearing Craven's words, Selene frowned and retorted, "In my opinion, this is still Victor's house." Craven had nothing to say to this, turned around in frustration, and slapped the chair on the side. The room echoed with a muffled sound as Craven slapped the chair. However, Selene didn't stop. Instead, she continued, "Listen, I don't want to argue. You have to understand that Michael is important to werewolves in a certain way." Craven turned around, roaring, "So now it's Michael." Selene sighed, "Can you let me finish?" Craven raised his hands and said, "I find it hard to understand why you are so obsessed with this absurd theory. Werewolves wouldn't be interested in a human, whether it's Michael or anyone else." Looking into Selene's eyes, Craven exclaimed, "Wait, are you infatuated with him?" Selene looked at him seriously and said, "What you've just said right now is absurd." "Is it?" After saying that, Craven directly left the room. On the other side, Erica looked at the sleeping Michael, curious, and leaned in front of him, brushing away a strand of hair from his face, observing this handsome human. At this moment, Erica noticed something unusual on his shoulder. She opened the shirt at the shoulder, revealing the bite marks from a werewolf. Erica's expression turned extremely unpleasant at this discovery, considering that werewolves and vampires were mortal enemies. Suddenly, Michael opened his eyes, startling Erica, who jumped onto the roof, limbs gripping onto it, and turned to face Michael, revealing her sharp fangs. Seeing this, Michael was also taken aback. He opened the window in a hurry, disregarding the pouring rain outside and the height of the building. He jumped out and ran away from the castle. Selene and Craven, who were returning, witnessed Michael's escape. An angry Craven gave Selene a harsh slap. Stunned by the slap, Selene couldn't do anything to Craven. She couldn't fight back, she could only angrily go to the training ground and vent her frustration with a handgun. Bullets poured out one by one, each one hitting the target's head. At this time, weapons expert Khan walked in, watching Selene in training, and said, "I hope you never get mad at me. Wait, try this." Khan took out a silver-white modern pistol and handed it to Selene. Taking the new pistol, Selene aimed at the target that had just been set up and pulled the trigger. The head of the stone statue hit by the bullet oozed a liquid similar to mercury. Khan looked at Selene and said, "Check the magazine." Selene opened the magazine, looking at the new bullets on it, and exclaimed with joy, "You imitated werewolf bullets, silver nitrate." Khan nodded, "A deadly formula." Selene looked at Khan and asked, "Tell me, Khan, do you believe that Lucian has really died as they say?" Khan was curious, is Craven talking about his war stories again? Selene blinked, "Yes, I want to know if that's just a absurd tale. There's nothing to prove that he killed Lucian, except for what he said." Khan looked incredulously at Selene, "I never underestimated Craven's ambition, but Victor believes in him, and that's the most important thing. Where are you going with this?" "Nowhere." Selene picked up the handgun and continued practicing shooting wildly. On the other side, Craven sat in a car and arrived at a secret location. After getting out of the car, he entered another car. Angry, Craven said after getting into the car, "Engaging vampires openly and chasing humans. I can't believe it, I heard you started a killing spree." Lucian grabbed Craven's neck and said, "Calm down, Craven. That human is none of your concern, and I've been on a killing spree for a long time." After saying this, Lucian released his grip on Craven's neck. Craven took a deep breath, then looked at Lucian seriously and said, "Let your people stay in the bay, Lucian. At least from now on, don't make me regret our agreement." Lucian scornfully curled his lips and said, "Just take care of your side. Remember, I've shed blood for you. Without me, you have nothing. You are nothing." Craven looked deeply at Lucian, didn't say anything, just opened the car door and left. On the other side, Selene, coming out of the training ground, went straight to the archives to search for records about Lucian's death. The book stated, among all the warriors attacking Lucian's fortress, the only surviving vampire is Craven. He was rewarded handsomely, not only because he bravely charged through enemy lines but also because he brought back evidence of the death of the werewolf leader, a piece of skin cut from Lucian's arm with a branded mark. Chapter 192, Chapter 192, 100% completion rate. Looking at the sealed and marked skin in the archives, Selene forcefully tore it off. Continuing to browse through the records, she found that on the page depicting Lucian's appearance, the part with his face had been torn, leaving only the image of his body. Observing the necklace on the depicted figure, Selene immediately noticed something wrong. Recalling the memory in her mind, Selene realized that the werewolf who chased Michael today had the same necklace around his neck as the one Lucian wore in the image. Raising the gravity of the situation, Selene hurriedly headed outside. She needed to awaken Elder Victor. Meanwhile, Erica, who was looking for Selene in the corridor, saw her and said, "I've been looking for you. He's been bitten. You're human, he's marked by the werewolves." Hearing Erica's words, Selene had to stop and confronted her directly. "Did Craven instruct you to investigate?" "No, I saw his wound with my own eyes, I swear." Selene glanced at her but didn't say anything. She just turned around and left. Erica looked at Selene's back and shouted, "What about the Covenant? You know that's not allowed." On the other side, Michael, who had escaped from the castle, returned to the hospital. He found his colleague, informed him of his situation, and also told him that he had been bitten by a man. Hoping for comfort here, Michael, instead, had his return message conveyed to the police by his colleague. Raising what his colleague had done, Michael could only escape through the window. 2 police officers immediately tracked him. Although these 2 police officers were legitimate officers, they were also werewolves. In the end, Selene chose to break the rules, using her own blood to awaken the dormant vampire Elder Victor. Through the ability of blood memory, Selene conveyed everything she wanted to say to Victor. On the other side, inside the werewolf base, the werewolves were divided into 3 teams standing in a vast open space. Members of Erica's team stood aside, observing everything. Lucian stood in front of everyone, excitedly saying, "For many years, we have been committed to mixing the bloodlines of werewolves and vampires, but we have never succeeded. We've been doing useless work. Even at the cellular level, our species are in constant struggle, trying to eliminate each other. We know the key is to find a rare bloodline, a direct descendant of Alexander Corvinus. After countless disappointments, today we have finally found someone who can perfectly mix the 2 bloodlines. Someone uncontaminated, a true sample of the original virus. His blood can perfectly blend our 2 races' bloodlines. Once we inject him with our blood, along with the powerful bloodline energy of a vampire injected together, we will gain a new life and even more powerful strength. By then, we will easily destroy the vampires, get rid of these days surviving in darkness and sewers, and become a brand new species, taking control of our own lives." As Lucian's words fell, all the werewolves present roared in excitement. For centuries, ever since Lucian's defeat, though werewolves were no longer servants of vampires, life had become even harder than before. They were constantly hiding in dark corners, evading the pursuit of vampires. The slightest exposure of their identity could result in the vampires attacking, capturing, or killing them. They had had enough of such days. The dawn of hope was right in front of them, and the werewolves roared in excitement. On the side, Rock Lee asked softly, "Is the new species really powerful?" Erica shook his head and whispered, "Possibly. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so excited. But how exactly, who knows?" At this moment, Lucian extended his arm, and the scene fell silent. "Doctor, take a team and go to the castle of the vampires. Watch Selene and follow her to find Michael and bring him back." The doctor's face revealed an excited expression, immediately saying, "Understood, I guarantee the completion of the mission. Raise, take a team and go to the train station to kill council member Amelia who is coming. Bring back her blood." Raise said in a deep voice, "Yes, leader." After finishing, Lucian looked at Erica's team on the side and continued, "Mr. Erica, please take care of Ray's team." During the day, Lucian had a sudden idea and had a confrontation with Erica and others. He thought that even if he couldn't suppress them, he should at least be evenly matched. However, he didn't expect that he couldn't even defeat a young ninja. This made Lucian aware of the vastness of the outside world, and he became even more eager to become powerful through bloodline fusion. Upon Lucian's request, Irika nodded and said, "During the commission time, we will ensure the safety of the employer." Satisfied with Irika's response, Lucian nodded, then turned to the last group of personnel and said, "The rest, stay with me at the base, in case of a sudden attack by the vampire forces. Hope is on the horizon, my fellow kin, set forth." With Lucian's words, the two teams immediately armed themselves with guns and equipped with bullets to deal with vampires, and they set off. Irika took his team members, followed by Reyes and others, boarded the vehicles, and headed to the train station for an ambush. Reyes and Irika were in the same car. Watching the calm faces of the four people, Reyes said softly, "Honorable adjudicators, we might need your help in the upcoming battle." Naruto laughed heartily and replied, "Don't worry, leave the enemies to us." Looking at the excited Naruto, Sasuke and Rock Lee did not speak. Since entering the werewolf base, except for talking to Naruto, the two of them had not said a word to Reyes. At this moment, Irika's face showed a very official smile and said lightly, "The completion rate of our mission is 100%. The car soon arrived at the train station, and everyone didn't get off but waited on the side, awaiting the arrival of Amelia's train. Chapter 193, Chapter 193, Victor Awakens. On the other side, the doctor, leading a team, sat in an armored vehicle hidden in the woods outside the vampire castle, secretly monitoring every move in the castle. Meanwhile, Michael, who had escaped from the police pursuit, chose to take a taxi back to the vampire castle. Seeing Michael returning on the surveillance, Selene informed him that she would come out soon. In the control room, as Selene was about to leave, a furious Craven said, "If you go with him, don't ever come back here." Hearing the threat, Selene turned around, staring at Craven expressionlessly, and said, "Since Victor is awake, let's see what he has to say about this." With those words, Selene left the control room, leaving Craven bewildered. Only at this moment did Craven realize that Selene had violated the committee's rules by awakening Victor a century ahead of schedule. This era of rule should have been under Elder Marcus. Arriving at the garage, Selene chose a Maserati, drove out, and arrived at the castle's main gate. Watching Michael shivering in the rain, Selene pressed a button, and the Maserati's window lowered as she said, "Get in." After Michael got in, the Maserati started, heading towards the distance. Unbeknownst to Selene, the werewolf doctor had been monitoring everything from the woods. Seeing Michael getting into the car and leaving, the doctor immediately ordered, "Follow them slowly, don't let them notice." In the castle, Craven hurriedly went to the place where Elder Victor was in deep sleep. Surveying the surroundings and finding no changes, Erika followed him in, explaining, "Look, I warned her. I warned her, but she didn't listen. I should have told you earlier." Craven, looking around, asked, "Tell me what?" After a brief pause, Erika opened up, "That person, Michael. He's not a human, he's a werewolf." Hearing this news, Craven roared unbelievably, "What?" Just then, an old voice rang out in the room, "Why so noisy?" Hearing this, Craven's expression froze. He inwardly thought, Elder Victor has really been awakened ahead of schedule. Craven turned his head to look at the source of the voice. At this moment, Victor walked out from the corner of the room. Behind him were countless tubes inserted with numerous blood bags. Numerous crimson blood, through various tubes, was helping Victor recover his strength. Victor took slow steps, standing in front of the stone chair, looking at his two subordinates. He waved to Erika, saying, "Leave." Following the order, Erika left the room immediately, leaving only Victor and Craven. "Do you know why I was awakened, servant?" Craven knelt on one knee, bowing his head, and replied, "I don't know, master. But I will find out soon." Hearing this response, Victor asked, "Do you mean find her?" "Yes, master." Victor closed his eyes and said, "You must bring her to me. We have much to discuss, Selene and I. She has transmitted many troubling things to me, matters that need immediate attention. Our organization has become weak, decadent. Perhaps I should consider other candidates to manage my affairs." At this moment, while Victor was reprimanding Craven, he suddenly gasped for breath, speaking weakly, "Nevertheless, many memories she transmitted are chaotic, without a sense of time." Evidently, the large amount of disordered memories, due to the lack of a sense of time, made the just awakened Victor uncomfortable. Seeing this, Craven, kneeling on the ground, immediately spoke, Please, master, let me call for help. You should rest. Upon hearing the word rest, Victor immediately stabilized his breath. With a firm tone, he said, I have rested enough. What you should do is summon Marcus. Craven glanced at the mechanism to awaken Marcus on the ground, then spoke, but he is still in slumber, master. Amelia and the council will arrive here tomorrow night to awaken Marcus, not you. You were awakened a whole century ahead of the expected time. Hearing his servant's words, Victor's gaze deepened, contemplating something. On the other side, Selene drove with Michael towards the distance. While driving, Selene spoke, never come back here. They will kill you. Michael incredulously shouted at Selene, why? Who are you people? Selene looked at the panting Michael, whose clothes were soaked with blood, and then directly pulled open his shirt at the shoulder. She immediately found out that Erica didn't lie, Michael had been marked by a werewolf. Seeing this result, Selene sighed helplessly. You are now caught in a war that has been going on for over 1,000 years. A bloody conflict between vampires and werewolves. After a pause, Selene said, I hope you are lucky. Most people die within an hour after being bitten by a werewolf. The virus we transmit is deadly. At this moment, Michael suddenly asked, if you bite me, will I become a vampire? You will die. No one can survive the initial turning of both species. Turning back to look at Michael again, Selene said, the correct thing to do would be to stop the car and kill you. Upon hearing Selene's words, Michael angrily roared, then why did you help me? I didn't. I tracked you to kill your fellow werewolves. My only interest is why werewolves urgently need you. Soon, Selene brought Michael to an old building. The circular staircase indicated the building's long history. Thinking about his situation, Michael curiously asked, I saw some things, some illusions. They are not illusions, they are memories. You were bitten by him, and his memories were transmitted to you. Reaching the top floor, Selene opened the door and said, this is one of the places we use for interrogation. It should be safe. Entering the room, Selene turned on the lights and opened the blinds. She then went to the refrigerator, took out a blood bag, and tossed it to Michael. Taking the blood bag, Michael looked confused. He then looked at the label on the bag and read, Ziodex Industries. Chapter 194, Chapter 194, Ambush. Hearing Michael's words, Selene replied, it's our company. Originally, it used to make artificial blood plasma, but now it does this. Michael looked at the blood bag in his hand and muttered, this is cloned blood. At this moment, Selene opened the surveillance at the entrance stairs of the building, glanced behind to ensure no one was following, and then turned to Michael, who had put down the blood bag. Michael sat down in a chair in the room, looking at the bullets and tools and asked, puzzled, what is this for? Selene looked at Michael and answered, werewolves are allergic to silver. If we don't quickly remove the bullets during the interrogation, they will die. And what do you do after the questioning? Selene turned to Michael, while still handling things in her hands, said, we put the bullets back. Michael, sitting in the room, asked, why do you hate them so much? Selene, looking out at the pouring rain, said calmly, I've told you before, we're at war. So, are you just following orders? Hearing this, Selene turned her head to look at Michael, then turned away without saying a word. Seeing this, Michael raised his head, looked at Selene, and continued, why don't you answer? Seeing the silence from the other side, Michael nodded and said, all right. Some things constantly tears us apart. I couldn't save my mother and my sister, their screams wake me up daily. My father died outside wanting to drive them away. I stood at the door. When I wanted to run to my niece's room, I found a pair of twin girls, only 6 years old, slaughtered. Like animals. Hearing Selene's narrative, Michael exclaimed, my God. Next, I was in his arms. The war reached my home, and he had been tracking werewolves for many days. He drove them away and saved me. Who? Victor. The oldest and strongest among us. That day, he made me a vampire. He gave me strength to avenge my family. Since then, I don't want to think about the past. Michael curiously asked, who initiated the war? Werewolves, or at least, that's what we've been led to believe. Investigating the past is strictly prohibited. After saying these words, looking at the weather outside, Selene suddenly picked up the pistol beside her and said, I should go back. Seeing Selene about to leave, Michael quickly stood up and asked, "What should I do?" Selene looked at Michael and replied, "Victor knows what to do. I'll come back." Michael shook his head and said, "I don't want to be alone. You will if you want to stay alive." Looking at her, Michael said in a gentle voice, "I want to go with you." Seeing this, Selene directly grabbed the handcuffs beside her, locked Michael to the chair, and then turned and left. "What are you doing?" Standing at the door, Selene turned around and said, "Tomorrow night, on the full moon. During that time, you will transform. You will kill, and you will also eat people. This is unavoidable. I'm very sorry, but I can't let you roam freely." After some contemplation, Selene came back and left a handgun. "A single bullet won't kill you, but the silver inside can prevent you from transforming, at least for a few hours. If I can't come back in time, end it yourself. Use this." After placing the gun in Michael's hand, Selene left the room without looking back. On the other side, Vampire Khan led a fully armed vampire team, driving to the train station, and then entered the platform to wait. Khan did not notice the werewolf forces ambushed at the train station. At this moment, a train slowly approached. After confirming the signal with flashlights, and ensuring that the ones receiving them were vampires, Amelia led her team with armed forces, slowly walking out of the train. Seeing the opponent confirming the signal, Reyes immediately ordered, "Action! Howl!" After a wolf howl, several werewolves transformed into wolves, jumped onto the train, and others picked up submachine guns, rushing out, firing wildly at the vampire team receiving them. Da 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 da. In an instant, werewolves and vampires engaged in a fierce battle. Seeing the war already started, Irika and the others finally walked out slowly. "Go directly to the train." Lord Charles ordered to check if the vampires have blood cores. "Yes." Shua shua shua. With a flash, the figures of Irika, Suzuki, and Rock disappeared instantly. Seeing all his teammates rushing onto the train, Naruto shouted, "Wait for me." Wah. After speaking, Naruto made a jump, directly breaking a train window, and rushed in. Seeing a sudden golden-haired boy crashing in, the vampires on the train did not show any mercy, directly pulling the trigger. Regardless of whether Naruto was a werewolf, at this time, at this place, and appearing in this manner, killing him was the right move. Da 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 da. As the trigger was pulled, sparks of fire spewed from the gun barrels, and countless silver bullets were shot towards Naruto. Not good. Naruto yelled, rolling his body, avoiding the incoming bullets. Then, he punched the armed member directly. Boom. The vampire holding the gun was directly knocked away by Naruto, crashing into the window. Wah. But in Naruto's anxious punch, the force was not small. The vampire, under this force, was directly thrown out of the train through the broken window. Dealing with one enemy, Naruto dared not linger at all, directly rushing towards another. He stood on a seat, made a jump. With his agility and speed, which is much better than werewolves and vampires, he directly came to the front of another person, delivering a punch to the opponent's chin. The chin is inherently the weakest spot. Even for vampires, a heavy blow here could lead to unconsciousness. Boom. Then the opponent's defense was not as strong as imagined, and Naruto directly shattered the chin. In an instant, the two vampires in this train carriage lost their combat power. At this time, outside the train, gunshots continued. Despite Khan leading his team using new bullets, and Reyes also using specially made bullets, both sides were losing members. As for the werewolves who jumped onto the train, several of them were immediately sprayed by Amelia's subordinates on the roof of the train. They couldn't get close at all. Chapter 195, Chapter 195, Blood Core, Bonus Chapter. Irika entered the train effortlessly. With his kunai in hand, he effortlessly decapitated all the vampires in this section of the carriage. Heads soared into the air as blood sprayed across the entire carriage. After finishing off the vampires in this carriage, Irika didn't immediately charge into the next one. Instead, holding his kunai, he approached the lifeless body of one of the vampires. Staring at the lifeless vampire, Irika took a deep breath. He then opened the chest and abdomen of the vampire as if slicing through fruits, and after a bit of searching with his hand inside, he found nothing unusual other than normal organs. Somewhat disappointed with the result, Irika muttered, "Nothing here? Can't it be in the limbs?" Irika noticed the limbs of the vampire and began contemplating where else the blood core could be. Suddenly, he noticed a severed head nearby, a result of his decapitation. Considering the vampire's ability to gain memories through blood-sucking, he speculated whether the blood core might be in the head. Taking the severed head, Irika pierced it gently with his kunai, revealing the brain. Indeed, at the location of the pineal gland, he found a tiny red crystal the size of a grain of rice. Holding this crystal, which had 4 diamond-shaped faces, Irika gently squeezed it, surprisingly not breaking it. However, he could sense that, while not extremely hard, the crystal had a certain level of toughness. Since he didn't find anything else unusual in the vampire's body, Irika speculated that this might be the blood core Charles had mentioned. Placing the blood core into his ninja tool pouch, Irika transformed into a head collector, systematically collecting blood cores from the decapitated vampires in the carriage. On the other side, Selene, who had just prepared to return to the vampire castle, looked down the stairs and saw a group of people wearing black trench coats and armed with weapons running towards her. Seeing this situation, Selene knew that the werewolves were chasing her. Instead of going downstairs, she quickly returned to the interrogation room. Michael, sitting alone on a chair in deep thought, heard Selene's return and saw her say, "We can't stay here, the werewolves are chasing us." Selene quickly unlocked Michael's handcuffs. Hearing the commotion outside, she glanced at the surveillance and saw that the werewolves had arrived at the door. Selene pulled out her handgun and fired wildly at the door. Da. Bullets pierced through the door, directly hitting the werewolves before they transformed. Since it is a specialized weapon, the bullets were extremely effective against werewolves. For ordinary werewolves, being shot often meant death, especially considering the corrosive effect of silver nitrate, making the death quicker and more painful. Facing the door, Selene emptied the magazine, then took out another handgun and fired another shot through the window. Whoosh! The window shattered, and Selene shouted to Michael, "Go, quickly!" Seeing this scene, Michael had no choice but to climb out the window as instructed. However, looking at the nearly 20 meters of height, his legs felt weak, and his gaze was a bit dazed. "Jump!" Hearing the command from behind, Michael turned back and shouted, "Are you kidding me?" At this moment, the werewolf who had been shot had already knocked open the door, crouched down, and started shooting. Fortunately, the werewolf's marksmanship was not great, and all the bullets hit the window frame. Nevertheless, Michael had no choice but to jump down. Ah! In the midst of screams, Michael performed a 360-degree spin in the air before landing smoothly. Surprisingly, he suffered no injuries at all, leaving him somewhat incredulous about the result. However, before he could catch his breath, a police car with sirens blaring screeched to a halt in front of him. 2 policemen immediately got out, delivering a barrage of punches and electric shocks, knocking Michael to the ground. Subsequently, they stuffed him into the police car and sped away. These 2 officers in police uniforms were also werewolves. Meanwhile, Selene, inside the room, skillfully eliminated the incoming werewolves one by one. The doctor was the only one who, due to sheer luck, had a bullet graze his shoulder and remained alive but injured. Having taken care of all the enemies in the room, Selene crouched down to change the magazine. She then aimed the gun at the window, not seeing Michael but noticing the tail lights of a police car. Facing this outcome, Selene felt a bit helpless. Michael had been captured by the werewolves. Seeing the only surviving werewolf on the ground, Selene took him back to the castle. She intended to expose Craven's lies to Victor and execute this guy who had made a pact with the werewolves. On the other side, at the train station, with the help of Irika's team, Reyes and the werewolves wiped out all the vampires. Even Elder Amelia, after transforming, was pierced through the heart by Uchiha Sasuke's Chidori and died on the spot. After dealing with all the enemies, Reyes approached Amelia's corpse with a syringe, drawing her blood. Meanwhile, Irika, accompanied by Sasuke and others, collected blood cores from the vampires. After extracting Amelia's blood, Reyes said to Irika, who had finished his work, "We've got what we need. Do you need this elder's body?" Irika didn't hesitate and directly opened Amelia's forehead, taking out a blood core from the pineal gland. Looking at Amelia's blood core, Irika found that it was a 6-faced rhombic blood core. Surprisingly, its size was more than twice that of the average vampire's blood core. Seeing the blood core in Irika's hand, Reyes asked, "What's the use of this thing? We found something similar in the vampires before, but after researching for half a day, we still don't know its purpose. Also, if werewolves consume this thing, they will die from the conflict of bloodlines." As for ordinary people, they can't absorb it and will simply excrete it. Irika glanced at Ray's indifferently and said, I don't know. I plan to study it. Seeing Irika's indifferent expression, Ray's didn't dare to say anything more. The battle he led the werewolves and only dealt with the peripheral members of Vampire's team. All the vampires on the train were killed by Irika's team. Including the powerful Amelia, who was easily killed by the other party, gave Ray's a renewed understanding of the strength of Irika and the others. After collecting all the blood cores, Irika said to Ray's, we can retreat now. Chapter 196, Chapter 196, Escape. Inside the vampire castle, Victor had regained his strength through blood replenishment, reverting to his original appearance. The door to the dormant chamber was opened, and Craven walked in. Seeing Victor dressing, Craven knelt down and said, Master. I need to see Selene now, not you, Victor stated. Craven slowly stood up and took a few steps forward. Since she ran out and saw that werewolf, she hasn't returned, Master. Victor, looking down at Craven, said, your incompetence has made things more difficult. Craven explained, it's not my fault. She was bewitched, actually thinking I'm the mastermind behind some absurd conspiracy. At that moment, Selene's voice echoed from behind, this is my evidence. Selene appeared at the door, tossing in the captured werewolf doctor. The doctor moaned as he slid in front of everyone. Selene pressed the werewolf doctor down in front of Victor and used the chains on the ground to bind his hands, making him kneel in front of Victor. Selene grabbed the injured shoulder of the doctor with one hand and said, now, I hope you can tell them what you told me. The doctor raised his head, glancing at Selene but remained silent. Seeing this, Selene formed her hand into a claw and viciously scratched the doctor's injured shoulder. Blood flowed from the wounded area. Ah! The doctor, in pain, let out a miserable scream. All right, all right. For many years, we've been devoted to creating hybrid bloodlines. But all our efforts were in vain. Even at the cellular level, our species fought each other, annihilating one another. We knew the key was to find a rare bloodline. A direct descendant of Alexander Corvinus. He was a Hungarian warlord in the early 15th century. At that time, he witnessed a plague ravaging his village, but he was the sole survivor. For some reason, something within him could change and assimilate diseases, making them his ally. He became the first true immortal. At this point, the doctor paused, and Selene continued applying pressure. The doctor screamed again, and then continued, several years later, he had at least 2 children who inherited this trait. Seated in the superior position, Victor wore a smile and said, the 3 sons of Alexander Corvinus, one was bitten by a bat, one by a wolf, and one walked the lonely path of human death. Victor sneered, it's just an absurd legend, probably a joke concocted by someone with ulterior motives. At this moment, the werewolf doctor raised his head, staring directly at Victor, and said, but we do have a common ancestor. Victor shouted, there's a descendant of Alexander Corvinus lying here, not more than 3 feet away. As Victor spoke, he pointed to an underground mechanism next to the doctor. The doctor looked at the spot Victor indicated and said, yes, but he's a vampire. What we need is a pure sample. Untainted, a true copy of the original virus, which is the Alexander Corvinus bloodline itself. According to our knowledge, it's inherited in a dominant manner within his human descendants' genetic coding. Until the appearance of Michael Corvin, whose blood can perfectly blend the bloodlines of our 2 races. Hearing this, Victor retorted, there's no such blending. Talking about it is just ridiculous. The doctor stared at Victor and continued, then just wait and see. Once Lucian injects. Lucian is already dead. Seeing the werewolf about to expose himself, Craven, who was behind Victor and Selene, took the opportunity when their attention was fully drawn to the werewolf's words. He silently left the dormant chamber and immediately left the castle in a car. Hearing Victor say Lucian was dead, the doctor laughed, who said that? Hearing this, Selene quickly looked to where Craven was standing, only to find that he was long gone. Seeing this, Victor descended and approached Selene, saying, I assure you, child, Craven will pay for this. The doctor looked at both of them and then said, this house is about to become a ruin. Selene pulled out her gun and pointed it at the doctor's head, saying, then you'll die first. The doctor, being pointed at, hurriedly said, wait. You, and only you, know the truth about what happened. Seeing that the doctor had something to say, Victor gave Selene a look. Selene moved the gun away from the doctor's head, pointing it at his back. If Lucian can get help from a pure bloodline, a powerful elder like Amelia or someone like you. Then, with Michael's blood injected together. Hearing this, Victor shouted, "Despicable." The doctor continued, "A half-vampire, half-werewolf, but stronger than either." At this moment, the door to the dormant chamber opened. A fully armed squad of vampires ascended. The leader spoke, "Master, members of the council have been assassinated." Ah! This news left Victor stunned. "How's Amelia?" Victor asked. The leading vampire replied, "Blood-drained, heart-pierced, and all the vampires' foreheads have been opened, as if something was taken from them." Hearing this, Victor and Selene exchanged glances and then closed their eyes in a moment of silence. Foreheads. Victor thought of something, muttering, "What does the werewolf want with that?" Victor had researched the red crystal located in the pineal gland. However, he found no use for it. It couldn't be consumed by werewolves, nor could vampires eat it, and it seemed to have no use. At this moment, the werewolf doctor laughed, "Ha ha ha. Everything is about to begin." Selene fired a shot directly at the werewolf's thigh, saying, "Speak. Besides blood, what's the use of the other thing you took? I don't know what you're talking about. Do you vampires have something precious other than blood?" The werewolf doctor, seeing that he had already revealed so much, didn't want to continue hiding. Seeing that the werewolf did not seem to be lying, given that he had already disclosed so much, there was no need to continue torturing. Victor looked at Selene, then slowly said, "Our top priority is to kill Lucian and that Michael." Having said that, Victor took the lead and walked out of the dormant chamber. He needed to deal with the imminent disaster. Selene followed closely behind Victor as they left the dormant chamber together. The door was closed, leaving the werewolf doctor tied up inside. No vampire cared about the life or death of this werewolf, he had already lost his value. Silver nitrate corroded the werewolf's life. The doctor collapsed on the ground, blood continuously flowing from his wounds, soaking the ground. It flowed toward the coffin where Marcus still lay dormant. Chapter 197, Chapter 197, Sneak Attack. On the other side. Inside the werewolf base. Michael was brought back by two werewolf police officers who had taken him first. He was bound, limbs and mouth restrained, his eyes vacant and confused. Lucian looked at Michael and spoke, "You've been injected with an enzyme to prevent transformation. It takes some time to dispel this unstable state." Meanwhile, a werewolf on the side was about to draw blood from Michael, but Michael struggled violently, knocking the syringe from the werewolf's hand. The syringe shattered on the ground. Seeing this, the nearby werewolf slapped Michael across the face. Snap! Enough! Lucian stopped his subordinates and said, "Go check why Raze is delayed. With their strength and the help of those ninjas, it shouldn't take this long." Upon hearing Lucian's order, the werewolf subordinates, after giving Michael a disdainful look, turned and left. With his subordinates gone, Lucian approached Michael, holding a syringe and a smile on his face. "I do owe you an apology." He could use a lesson in manners. "Speaking of manners, I am Lucian." With that, Lucian removed the gag from Michael's mouth. With the gag removed, Michael gasped for breath and said, "Let me go. I need to go back." Lucian cleaned the spot on Michael's arm where the veins were located with an alcohol swab, then looked at the restrained Michael and said, "No one can go back. You can't go anywhere. Vampires will kill you on sight just because you'll become a werewolf, one of us." Lucian looked at Michael again and emphasized, "One of us." He then plunged the needle into Michael's arm, beginning to draw blood. "What are you doing? Ending this conflict?" Soon Lucian obtained a vial of Michael's blood. Seeing Lucian stop the blood draw, Michael asked, "Your war has nothing to do with me." "My war?" At this point, Michael saw the necklace around his neck, and vivid memories flashed in his mind. He witnessed Lucian being locked on the ground in the castle, and he saw a vampire woman getting executed, turning into ashes. Lucian rolled up his sleeve, injecting Michael's blood into his own body. "They forced you to watch her die, Sonia. This is the spark of war. I saw it as if I were there." Listening to Michael's words, Lucian smiled and continued, "We were once slaves, protecting humans from vampires during the day. I was born into servitude, but I harbored no hatred. I even married a vampire bride. This was forbidden by the Alliance, fearing the mixing of species. Terrified, he killed her, his own daughter, burned alive just because she loved me. This is his war, Victor's. He spent his last 600 years exterminating our kind. Hearing these words, Michael asked the most crucial question that he was concerned with, so what are you going to do with Selene? At this time, a team of armed werewolf soldiers entered, addressing Michael, we have company. Craven, with his subordinates, arrived at the werewolf base. Facing the werewolves, Craven spoke directly, I thought we had an agreement. The werewolf responded, be patient. Lucian approached, smiling at the newcomer, Craven. These matters should be discussed privately. Lucian glanced at his subordinates, then said, please escort our guest downstairs. Craven signaled his subordinates to follow. Once everyone in the room had left, leaving only Lucian and Craven, Lucian spoke, the council has been eliminated. Soon you'll have everything. The great organization and the unbreakable peace treaty with werewolves. The people I trust will not forget this moment recorded in history. Listening to Lucian, Craven said, how can you imagine controlling the situation with Victor already awake? No one can defeat him. As we speak, he's becoming more powerful. Lucian said, that's why I need Michael. If Victor were so easy to deal with, I would have acted centuries ago. As the two conversed, the werewolves escorting Craven's team downstairs discovered a floor covered in corpses. One of them shouted, retreat from the shaft, quickly. The werewolves locked the vampires behind them outside as they got in. Craven's subordinates, witnessing this scene, cursed, damn it. At this moment, Selene, leading a horde of vampires, arrived at the werewolf base. She looked down the shaft, and one vampire dropped a few grenades. The climbing werewolves, seeing the grenades falling from above, cursed, oh, damn. Boom. The grenades exploded, annihilating the werewolves at the shaft. The shockwaves shattered the window of Lucian and Craven's room. It's Victor. Yes. Lucian looked at Craven and said, if you had done well, he should still be in hibernation. Lucian, through the hole in the wall, glanced at Michael, bound at the arms. He then asked angrily, where's Reyes? He walked to the weapons table, grabbed a pistol, and UV radiation bullets designed for killing vampires. Any other way out? Craven, standing behind him, asked. Hearing this, Lucian turned to Craven, saying, I guess not for you. You can only fight for your life. No escaping. Forget about it. Now armed, Lucian went to the gate and opened it. Bang! Craven pulled out a gun from behind and fired a shot at Lucian's heart, saying, silver nitrate. I bet you didn't see that coming. Now standing at the gate, Lucian clutched his chest, looking at the flowing silver nitrate, and collapsed. Seeing Lucian down, Craven ran out. At this moment, werewolves all over the base engaged in battle with vampires, gunshots echoing everywhere. Reyes, with Irika's squad, had just returned, witnessing Lucian lying on the ground. Lucian! Reyes exclaimed, dropping the vial of Amelia's blood he held. Seeing the inexplicable grief in Reyes, Irika said, the enemy has infiltrated the base. Reyes, we need to execute the mission. Reyes touched Lucian's neck, feeling no possibility of survival. He then said angrily, kill all vampires. I beg you, Lord Irika. The next second, Reyes tore off his clothes, howling into a giant wolf, charging directly towards the vampire army outside. Seeing this, Irika turned to Sasuke, Naruto, and Rock Lee, saying, split up and kill all vampires. Yes. Chapter 198, Chapter 198, Chaos. Rock Lee locked onto a direction and rushed out, his speed leaving behind residual images. At this moment, a group of vampires was engaged in a fierce battle with werewolves. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Werewolves, get out of my way. It was Rock Lee who had arrived. After his loud shout, several werewolves immediately stopped shooting upon hearing Rock Lee's words, rolling away to evade. Rock Lee swiftly infiltrated the battlefield, his figure resembling a hurricane. Vampire bullets were ineffective against him. Ada, Ada, Ada. In an instant, Rock Lee punched each vampire, and the squad of 5 vampires met their demise. Fist-sized holes appeared in their chests. Rock Lee had known about their strength and resilient self-healing abilities since the train station. He attacked with lethal precision, leaving no room for mercy. After dealing with the enemies, Rock Lee quickly collected the blood cores. Seeing the lack of movement, several werewolves immediately emerged from their hiding places. "Thank you, Lord Rock Lee." While collecting the blood cores, Rock Lee instructed, "I've handled this side. Hurry to other locations. Stay safe." Upon hearing Rock Lee's orders, several werewolves nodded and said, "Understood." Other werewolves, witnessing this, immediately picked up their firearms and rushed out. The battle continued, vampires deployed numerous squads, shooting werewolves everywhere. Rock Lee collected the blood cores, while Sasuke entered a nearby underground pipeline. Fire release, Great Fireball Technique. A massive, 10-meter diameter fireball suddenly appeared, striking the nearby pipeline. Ah, ah, ah. Amidst a series of screams, several vampires instantly turned into charred corpses. At this moment, a werewolf, who had transformed into a giant wolf, saw this scene and immediately cancelled the transformation out of fear. You can control fire." Sasuke glanced at the werewolf and ignored him, proceeding to collect the blood cores. Observing Sasuke's lack of response, the werewolf dared not speak further, transformed back and continued searching for vampires. Ninjas from 4 directions began a frantic hunt for vampires. Meanwhile, the 6 subordinates brought by Craven had broken free from the house locked by werewolves. Just as they emerged, they were spotted by Raze, who had transformed into a giant wolf. He immediately pounced. Raze sent one vampire flying with a single swipe, then went for a deep bite on another's neck, instantly killing him. Having killed one vampire, Raze didn't stop but continued to charge towards the distance. Many werewolves, after using up their firearm ammunition, transformed into giant wolves and engaged in fierce battles with vampires. Their enhanced speed and strength allowed them to dodge bullets. At this time, Selene separated from the main force of vampires and, relying on her intuition, killed 4 werewolves along the way. Finally, she found Michael, bound in a room. Approaching Michael, Selene shot the chains binding him, freeing his arms. "I have to get you out, Victor is coming soon. Unless all the werewolves are dead, he won't be satisfied." Michael, now freed from his restraints, descended and said to Selene, "If you help me, they will kill you too." "I know," Selene replied calmly. At this moment, the two didn't notice that this scene was witnessed by Lucien, who should have been shot dead. Seeing their situation, Lucien thought of his past. Meanwhile, after killing 3 vampires, Raze encountered Victor, who had just entered with his subordinates. Raze didn't consider the vast difference in strength and directly charged at him. Victor looked at the giant wolf before him, his expression indifferent. He extended a hand and instantly grabbed the wolf's neck as it lunged at him. Seeing he was caught, Raze swung his claws at Victor, but Victor's other hand caught Raze's arm. Victor forcefully snapped off Raze's arm and then smacked him to the ground with a single blow. Looking at the fallen giant wolf, Victor pulled out a silver longsword and pierced through Raze's body, ending his life backslash. On the other side, Selene, with the rescued Michael, was running away, trying to get him out of the area engulfed in the ongoing conflict. Avoiding enemies along the way, they arrived at a gate. Michael opened the gate just in time to see Craven, who was about to leave through the well inside the gate. Seeing the person who opened the gate, Craven, disgusted by Michael, directly raised his gun and began shooting. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets with silver nitrate created several holes in Michael's chest. He fell to the ground, writhing in pain from the corrosive effects of the silver nitrate. Ah, ah, ah. Seeing this, Selene immediately rushed to Michael's side. Craven also walked out, extending a hand towards Selene. "Enough, come with me quickly." Selene slapped away Craven's extended hand and said angrily, "I hope I can see Victor kill you." Craven stared at Selene. "I think he will. Let me tell you a little secret about you. Victor is the one who killed your entire family, not the werewolves." Hearing Craven's words, Selene turned her head away in disbelief. Craven leaned down, facing Selene, and said, "He never follows the rules he sets for himself. In other words, he doesn't follow the rules of not killing. So occasionally, he goes out to taste human blood and have a good meal. I kept this secret for him and cleaned up the scene. But it was him, sneaking from one room to another, killing all your beloved family. And when he saw you, he couldn't resist the urge to drain your blood. It's you who reminded him of his daughter Sonia, the daughter he sentenced to death." Hearing this news, Selene shook her head in disbelief and shouted, "Nonsense! Whether you believe it or not." At this moment, Craven extended his hand again. Now let's go, come to my side. Selene looked at Craven's outstretched hand, took a step back, and once again refused. Seeing her rejection, Craven picked up his gun and aimed it at her. Then, so be it. Chapter 199, Chapter 199, Is it you who is called Victor? At this critical moment, Lucian, who had been injured by Craven, silently crawled over. He grabbed Craven's calf and used the short sword on his arm to directly stab it into Craven's leg. Ah! Craven cried out in pain, and then a slap directly sent Lucian flying. However, he staggered backward as well. As Lucian got knocked away, he looked at Selene who was guarding Michael and said, "Bite him." Selene looked at Lucian, and the doctor's words suddenly echoed in her mind, "Half wolf, half vampire is stronger than both." Selene glanced at Lucian, then at the agonizing Michael who was about to die. In order to save Michael, Selene made up her mind and lowered her head to bite. Lucian smiled as he watched this scene. Meanwhile, Craven pulled out the short sword inserted in his leg, looking puzzled. "What the hell are you doing?" Lucian, lying on the ground, looked at Craven and said, "You may be able to kill me and my kin, but my will has been fulfilled no matter what." Hearing this, Craven raised his gun and crazily pulled the trigger at Lucian until the bullets in the gun were all fired. Completely killing Lucian, Craven saw a shadow outside the window and knew that Victor had rushed over. He immediately turned and ran. At this moment, Selene was still biting Michael, and she did not notice others coming in. Victor walked behind Selene, picked her up, and threw her out. However, at this moment, Selene had already completed her action. Victor lifted Michael from the ground, looked at him, and just as he was about to throw Michael away, a stone suddenly flew. Bang! The force of the stone was not small, hitting Victor's arm, making him release his grip on Michael, who fell to the ground. Looking in the direction from where the stone came, Victor saw an Asian teenager standing on the roof. It was Uchiha Sasuke. "Are you Victor?" Sasuke's voice was cold, without showing any emotion. Victor looked at the teenager on the roof, his expression indifferent. He ordered, "Attack." Several vampires who followed Victor in opened fire immediately upon hearing the command. The muzzles of submachine guns spewed countless silver bullets towards the roof. Da-da-da-da. The trails of fire from the submachine guns erupted, but before the enemy could pull the trigger, Sasuke jumped. His figure was like a ghost, instantly appearing behind three vampires. As for the bullets fired, they missed Sasuke entirely. With a whip kick, Sasuke directly sent all three vampires flying. Then, he threw three shurikens, which flew over the necks of the vampires without directly attacking them. Sasuke reached out and pulled, and an invisible steel wire instantly beheaded the three, and their heads flew into the sky, dying on the spot. It happened in an instant, before the enemy could react. At this moment, Sasuke turned his body as he continued to speak, "Old man, I'm asking you a question. Is your name Victor?" Victor looked at the young man in front of him, unable to gauge his depth for a moment. He tentatively said, "We have an agreement with the supernatural forces to adhere to the rules of not killing each other." Suddenly, Sasuke's figure flashed, and with a swift kick, he appeared in front of Victor, kicking him in the face. Then, with an uppercut, he sent Victor into the air, followed by a powerful leg strike while Victor was still in midair, slamming him hard into the ground. Boom! Victor, who had fallen to the ground, raised a cloud of dust. "Why so much nonsense? Just answer the questions." On the side, Selene watched in amazement as the Asian teenager, who had split her bullets with a dagger in the subway station, now brutally beat Victor. At this moment, Selene still didn't know that it wasn't a dagger but a kunai. Selene immediately spoke, "He is Victor." Uchiha Sasuke glanced at Selene but ignored her. He had been squatting on the roof before they arrived, witnessing everything that had just happened. Sasuke walked up to Victor. The fallen Victor suddenly stood up, throwing a punch at Sasuke. Although Sasuke was not tall, he grabbed Victor's arm and instantly broke the claws that the latter had extended. "Ah!" Victor exclaimed in pain, staggering backward. He stared at the young man in front of him and shouted, "I am Victor. Who are you, and why are you helping the werewolf?" Sasuke took out the adjudicator coin from the Continental Hotel, flicked it with his finger, and then put it away. "Weaklings don't deserve to know my name." Upon hearing these contemptuous words, Victor bared his fangs and roared. The victor who had been dormant for many years didn't understand the meaning of the coin. With his broken arm already healed, he drew the silver-white longsword from his waist and swung it towards Sasuke. Victor's speed was impressive, and the sword created a fierce wind, but no matter how fast Victor was, in Sasuke's eyes, it was nothing. Victor swung the sword dozens of times, but he couldn't land a single hit on Sasuke. Instead, he left many sword marks on the ground. Slow, too slow. Vampire Elder, is this all you've got? Feeling the strength of the Vampire Elder, Sasuke was disappointed. If this is your full strength, then you have no reason to stay here. Hearing the young man in front of him preparing to kill Victor, Selene shouted, "Stop!" Not because Selene wanted to save Victor, but because she wanted to uncover the truth. Sasuke ignored Selene's shout. He performed a backflip, creating some distance, and quickly formed hand seals. Lightning appeared in his hands, emitting a sound like the cries of thousands of birds. Dying under this move is considered your honor, not a bad treatment for the elder of your kind. Lightning style, Chidori. Sasuke ran at full speed, and in an instant, the distance between them disappeared. Before Victor could react, he was pierced through the chest. Looking down at the young man who had pierced his chest, Victor struggled to say, "Ma magic." Sasuke pulled out his right hand, disdainfully sneering. "Magic? This is ninjutsu, you ignorant bumpkin." Chapter 200, Annihilation. After dealing with Victor, Sasuke glanced at Selene beside him. This person, like him, had her entire family wiped out. Thinking about Lord Charles's request to bring a vampire back, he spoke, "I heard that by obtaining the opponent's blood, you can gain their memories. Just bite him, and you'll know the truth." Upon hearing Sasuke's words, Selene hesitated for a moment. She had never considered obtaining Victor's blood. "Thank you." Without further hesitation, Selene quickly ran over, grabbed Victor's corpse, and bit into it. Hiss. However, the residual lightning in Victor's blood caused Selene to shudder. As the blood entered her mouth, Victor's vast memories began to appear in Selene's mind, completely immersing her in the ocean of memories. Meanwhile, Michael, who had been bitten by Selene, underwent a transformation. His entire being began to change in the direction of a vampire. Bat-like claws appeared, his face morphed into that of a wolf, and then returned to a human appearance. Sasuke, observing Michael's changes, commented, "Really ugly." Having adapted to all these transformations, Michael stood up and looked at Sasuke, saying, "I know you. In the subway station, you were cool. Half wolf, half vampire. Let me see what makes you different from them." Sasuke approached and delivered a side kick. Michael immediately crossed his hands to block, but he was still kicked and flew into the wall. Climbing up from the ground, Michael shouted, "We are not enemies. Don't fight." Sasuke watched as Michael quickly stood up, laughing, "Decent defense." In just a few seconds, Sasuke, without using any ninjutsu, had defeated Michael, who was left defenseless. Michael, even with all his efforts, couldn't touch Sasuke at all. In the short span of time, Michael was beaten by Sasuke into a sorry state. Sasuke then stopped his attack. Looking at the fallen Michael, Sasuke shook his head. "No skills, no strategy. Too weak." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, 3 figures appeared. It was Iruka, Rock Lee, and Naruto. Iruka came to Sasuke's side and, looking at the fallen Michael and Selene lost in memories, asked Sasuke, "What's going on with these two? There was a vampire running out from your group just now, and I took care of it." Naruto, on the side, suddenly mocked, "Sasuke, you actually let a vampire escape. This is so funny." Sasuke glanced at Naruto, "Idiot." Seeing Sasuke scolding him, Naruto was about to come forward and argue but was pulled aside by Iruka, preventing him from speaking. Ignoring Naruto, Sasuke pointed at the fallen Michael and said, "Iruka-sensei, this person is a half-vampire, half-wolf. I think we can take him back to have a look. As for the one next to him, she is a vampire. However, she has a deep enmity with vampires. I think it fits Lord Charles's requirements, so I decided to keep her." Looking at the dazed Selene beside the vampire's corpse, Iruka expressed confusion, "What's wrong with her?" Sasuke glanced and explained, "She's retrieving the memories of the other." Iruka nodded, looked at the bodies on the ground, and said, "Collect the blood cores." Following Irika's instructions, S.H.I.E.L.D proceeded to collect the loot, digging out the blood cores from the several vampires he had killed. Meanwhile, Rock Lee walked over to Michael, who was lying on the ground, and observed the guy who had been beaten like a pig. Michael quickly reverted to his original form, completely returning to a human appearance, and his injuries rapidly healed. Observing this scene, Rock Lee commented, "The recovery speed is quite fast." Taking a deep breath, Michael looked at the four people and asked, "Who are you guys? Where are you taking us?" While Rock Lee conversed with Michael, S.H.I.E.L.D approached Victor. At this moment, Selene was still immersed in the process of absorbing memories. Ignoring her, S.H.I.E.L.D directly opened a hole in Victor's pineal gland, extracting the blood core. Victor's blood core was even larger than Amelia's. After securing the blood core, S.H.I.E.L.D went to Irika. "What's the next step?" "First, let's tally up how many blood cores we've obtained. Then, we'll use summoning technique to send these things to Lord Charles and confirm if they are useful." Excitedly, Naruto pulled out a small bag from his ninja pouch and handed it to Irika. Although he handed it to Irika, his eyes were on S.H.I.E.L.D as he said, "Irika-sensei, including the blood cores from the train station, I have a total of 28. While speaking, Naruto couldn't help but raise his eyebrows at S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D ignored Naruto, cleanly taking out his acquired blood cores. "Including the vampires I hunted at the train station, I have a total of 32 blood cores." Hearing that S.H.I.E.L.D had more blood cores than him, Naruto instantly lost the air of superiority. Muttering, he said, "Next time, I'll definitely surpass you." At this moment, Rock Lee concluded his conversation with Michael. With a flash, he appeared next to Irika, presenting his blood cores. At the same time, he touched his head with a smile, saying, 35 blood cores. Hearing Rock Lee's number, Sasuke's expression instantly became unpleasant, and he thought to himself, "Lost again." Since Rock Lee could open the 8 inner gates, S.H.I.E.L.D had never defeated him in their sparring sessions. This fact greatly frustrated him, especially since he couldn't rapidly increase his strength in a short period. Seeing Sasuke's change in expression, Irika didn't say anything. Instead, he took the blood cores from everyone and directly used summoning jutsu. Bang! After a burst of smoke, Parker was summoned. Irika put everyone's blood cores into a bag and then spoke, "Parker, someone will summon you tomorrow morning. At that time, take this thing to Lord Charles." After saying that, Irika tied the bag around Park's neck. "Okay, I'll deliver the item to Lord Charles as soon as possible." Then, Parker returned to the summoning realm. Sitting on the ground, Michael watched this scene unfold before him as his face was filled with disbelief. In just these 2 short days, he had experienced tremendous shocks, realizing that the world was not as he had imagined.
Thanks for listening.